Welcome back to the Thinking Critical Comic Book Podcast. It's Wes. It's time for the best damn comic book related podcast and YouTube program you can find. It's the Comics Aficionados. We've had an eventful week in the comic book industry. Lots of stuff to talk about. First of all, I do want to say thank you very much to, where was that? It was Eric O'Sullivan. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. He says, Wes and panel, I got to bounce and go grocery shopping before the remnants of the hurricane hit Boston tomorrow. You've become a great Saturday AM cartoon for me. A blessing gratitude. You've kept me interested. Well, thank you very much. And definitely keep yourself safe and definitely stock up. And hopefully you can ride out the hurricane. Yeah. And I really appreciate you supporting the channel. Joe, you're not in Boston. You're in New York, but you're in the area. You going to be all right?
I think so.
Do you have enough breakfast burritos to last you for a week?
Breakfast burrito wise, I'm probably doing better than most.
So how you been doing, Joe? You got anything you need to talk about here? You're just happy to be here.
About comics?
Oh, yeah.
No, Beckstar number 4 is out next week. Lost on Planet Earth, which I edited. The trade paperback just came out this past week from Dark Horse. So, hey, check it out. Or don't let me bully you into doing something I want to do.
Fuck that, bully people.
Yeah, you need to go.
Nerds need shoved in lockers. Come on, bully them.
Absolutely. So good to have him back. We've also got Tristen for Nerdette's Newsstand back. How you doing, Tristen?
Oh, good. I'm happy to be everyone's heel. I'm excited. I know we disagree generally on a lot, so it should be interesting.
Well, thanks for a better discussion. We definitely appreciate that. Anything going on over at Nerdette's Newsstand people need to know about? Any cool interviews like Dan Jurgens?
Oh, yeah. Dan Jurgens was on my channel last week. Yesterday, I had Stephanie Phillips on. Next week, I'm having Ram V on. So I'm super excited. Just kind of, stalking their social media and being like, hey, come on my channel. Come on. And it's working. So I'm excited.
Nice.
Speaking of stalkers, Uel Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Fine. Yeah, that's right. This last Tuesday, I had Eric Breen on the show for the first time. I have a fantastic comics YouTube channel, like so many other people out there. And it was a great conversation talking to two old guys talking about comic books.
Man, were you talking about old comic books or new comic books?
No, old comic books for the most part. There was some conversation in the chat last week about whether or not artists or writers were more important. And we kind of talked a little bit about that. And then I wanted to have a conversation about our favorite writer, artist guys and gals out there. And if we stripped one element, the art, would you read their books? And it was interesting. We didn't know if we would read Walt Simonson quite so heavily if he wasn't drawing it.
Man. Well, I do want to say, to plug my own show, if you like writer artists, Joe Corallo and I are going to be doing a retrospective on A Contract with God with Will Eisner later today on the channel. Definitely check that one out because that was a fantastic read. We had a great time talking about Will Eisner's career in that specific comic book. So thank you for the ability to plug the show, Uel. Appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. It's what I do.
Next up, we've got deep in the heart of Texas, Josh McDonald, the man behind Pop My Culture and also a contributor to BatmanNews.com. How you doing, Josh? Not nearly as much Batman news this week.
No, but I think that's okay, maybe. I mean, it's not nearly as much, but it's still way too much, right? I'm doing well, thank you.
That is good to hear. Anything going on at Pop My Culture? You got any big articles or anything?
We're kind of just prepping for Shang-Chi since it's the next thing coming out. So, getting ready for that.
Absolutely.
Which we'll be talking about later today. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to Lade Graber. He says, hey, this is Joe. In relation to Superman Red and Blue 6, did anyone else read the story Ally by Rex Ogle this week? It was on Ridley level to me.
Haven't read it yet.
I ain't got a chance to read it yet. I have the physical copy here. It's gonna get read, but
okay. No one read it yet.
I haven't read it yet either.
Short stories, not continuity based. Come on,
I don't like
other
anthologies.
Things to read.
And plus, Superman Red and Blue #1 was so bad; it's hard for me to go back.
If it's really that important to you guys, I'll grab the copy and read it. Like,
We'll get it.
I'll grab it.
We'll get it. The three of us will leave and go get it. We won't
read the
talk.
comic to everybody.
Get back to us next week on that. I will definitely do a review on Ally on my show.
Sounds great. Thank you very much for supporting the channel, Late.
Yeah, like it.
Whatever else that you want to talk about later, we will have all read it, hopefully. Last but not least, we've got the X-Men historian, the Marvel aficionado Doc, just off some more business travel, so you should be more salty than normal.
I am. A lot of work and a lot of late nights, and didn't even get back into my house until like 10 o'clock last night. So yeah, I'm irritated.
You didn't even get to the script club in Houston. How does that happen?
I didn't get to see a single stripper. Didn't get to get drunk. Didn't get to go to any bars.
No Waffle House?
Nope. Couldn't even find a Waffle House. I did hit some Whataburger though, because fuck yeah, I always have to hit Whataburger.
You should get the chicken strips with gravy. That's my thing.
I actually tried that because of you. It was really good.
Oh, there you go, man. Chicken strips with cream gravy. That's absolutely the way to go. So that's the panel today. We've got lots of stuff to talk about. A lot of controversies going on. But the big news, we've been kind of talking about it here on the channel, that it was clear that there was something off with Jonathan HIckman within X-Men. It felt like he was checking out on some issues, and he was coming back and kind of connecting to the House of X Powers of 10. And this week, we find out after his Substack deal, he's going to be continuing at Marvel, working on some other things, but he's officially off the X-Men bandwagon. What do you think about this, Uel? I think you were just as excited about House of X Powers of 10. I really had a lot of anticipation and expectations for Hickman's X-Men era, but it kind of goes off with a whimper.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, we still have those 4 issues of Inferno that can be, excellent. I think the worst thing or the best thing that can happen will be the worst thing with Inferno is that we see how much Hickman, means to this story, and without him being there, how little I care. And I feel bad because X-Men was really, really hot, and it felt like I'm finally getting my mutants back. Might not be the same way, but they're like really, doing some cool stuff. And oh my God, when they announced the new teams for the other books and they said how many of them they were going to be, it was like the second wave of cross-gen books. It was like not necessary. And that's what it was.
Yeah.
There could be good ones. There can be great art. There can be great writers. Not necessary.
Absolutely. What do you think about it, Joe? I know you and your brother have been talking about the X-Men era. Was he disappointed to find out Hickman was actually leaving?
Yeah. I mean, it was very quick. It was just like, oh, that's fine. I just won't read it anymore.
I've heard that a lot.
There's no drama, no hub. It's like, okay, cool. I'm out then. Like that's, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of that. I do think, in hindsight, like years from now, there's a chance a lot of people will have, the House of X Powers of 10 collection, the Hickman X-Men omnibus that skips over 10 of Swords, and then the collection they do of Inferno, and be like, you know what, that was pretty good. And they're not going to have the other. So I do think in hindsight, a lot of this is going to end up aging more gracefully. But right now, well, because you'll be able to kind of parse through and skip things. But right now, I think we've all been talking about this pretty openly for like a year. That it was like, really looks like Hickman's probably just going to leave soon, or he's like completely checked out, and what's he going to do? And it was all right. Everyone on that was correct. So.
Yep.
We do have Kenneth Dowling says, hello, gentlemen, and gentle lady. Glad to see you back, Tristen. It's actually Tristen. Almost didn't see the channel this morning, but happy I did. Love waffles. Let's go. I imagine that was a typo, but everybody's happy to see Tristen back. And thank you so much for saying the channel, Kenneth. I would hate for you to miss out on the episode. We have a lot of fun here. So, Josh, most people know you as the Batman guy or maybe the DC aficionado, but you were dipping your toe a little bit into Jonathan Hickman's X-Men.
Yeah.
What'd you think about all this?
I mean, I as we've said, I think you've kind of seen the writing on the wall for a while now that this was kind of coming this direction, so it doesn't surprise me. If I have one thought, I'm curious to see how much they let him do what he wants to do with Inferno, because it could very easily become a book of this is my story and that is not, depending on how he writes it. So I'm curious to see how Marvel navigates that, because I don't think they're going to let him do exactly what he wants to do, and that might hinder the story a little bit. But, it's a shame we didn't get what he wanted, because what he set up in House of X and Powers of 10 was really pretty engaging.
It was a lot of really big picture, like next level stuff with the phalanx and all the complexity of more of X, and can you reset the timeline? And are they actually on the right way to do this? And it felt like, you just didn't really get anything. He barely started going before he was over.
Yep. And then we got a fashion show. So, hey.
Well, those dresses were fabulous. Nerdette, were you on the Hickman X-Men bandwagon, or were you sticking with your DC stuff?
Yeah, no. I didn't even know people were still reading X-Men. It was so bad for so long. I've just dipped out. I'm like, okay, he's not going to save the line. I'm just not even going to waste my time. I haven't read X-Men in a really long time, besides today when I read Magneto for this.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for
God.
doing that.
But you picked a Leah Williams book.
Oh.
I
Sorry.
mean,
You like it?
but it was on the list. It was on the list.
Hold on,
Thank
that's
you.
fair.
Let's just say this. At least her reintroduction into X-Men was not X Factor number 10, okay? Like, come on.
Well,
X
yes,
Corp.
X Factor 10 was that's the worst comic of the year.
That was
Pretty easily.
I dipped back in for that when I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, we'll get into those details because she had a thing or two to say about that. You know what's interesting, Joe? Obviously, you've worked a little bit more in the publishing area, and you've been an editor where you have to work with the talents. It sounds like from the interview that Hickman gave that they were in the first phase. He was ready to move on to the next part of his trilogy, and then the rest of the creators said, "We want to stay here and keep creating in this area of the timeline." So we ended up moving on. Are you surprised that Hickman himself would just kind of acquiesce or give up the reins to this and not complete what he started?
It depends. It makes sense if the theory that this was just him scraping off the serial numbers of his Legion pitch and giving it over to Marvel, that you're not going to be as invested, that he did that because they, gave him the money, and it's like, all right, here, hold on, cross that out, like Cosmic Boy, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Saturn Girl. Okay, all right, here's a new pitch. So that if that's what happened, and they were just like, oh well, we had these other ideas, and you already have the money, like, and you're not that invested. That sounds great, everybody. Yeah, why don't we do that? And that's going to last how long? At least like 2 years, and the check's going to keep clearing for me for 2 years. Yeah, that sounds great.
And I don't have to tie into Empire or any other events that I'm not interested in.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like, I'm surprised I haven't seen jokes about Substack with Hickman being like, he found like another publisher to not hand things in on time with. So I do think that's probably going to happen, but I could also see that being an issue of Marvel being like, well, look, you were supposed to get X, Y, and Z in. You're not getting things in on time. These people here have ideas they're going to keep going. We have to put out a buttload of X-Men comics every month. So we have to do this. Like, sorry, buddy. So there's a few ways this could have went, I think, that are all at least somewhat plausible.
We do have Lade Kraber here. Thank you so much. Isn't it wonderful that Marvel is using Hickman for one last relaunch next year? All new number ones. Domination of X begins of our wallets in theory.
No,
I'm not surprised by this guy.
Look, here's the thing with you're in an interesting situation with the X-Men. They were at the top for so long, and then they just started crashing and burning, and they've been reverting to, I would say, mediocrity, if not sub-mediocre, for the last 10, 12 years. Honestly, I would say from the time Fraction got on that book, that's when the downturn on X-Men really happened. And it's just been going and going and going and going and going lower and lower and lower during that entire time. And they brought in Hickman as they've had a few like fits and starts with trying to get the X-Men brand back up there. They did it with the Jason Aaron era. They did it with the Bendis era. And there were fits and starts to both of them where it looked like, okay, maybe you were going to get something out of this. But here's the thing. Things that were super popular only get so many, and then, go back to not being popular. They only get so many chances of getting popular again before it's dead. It's dead permanently. It will never get popular again. And I think this was the one, this was the last real gasp of it for X-Men, for Marvel. And they had a good chance with Hickman. It was working. And then they shot themselves square in the dick by wildly overexpanding the line, filling it with mediocre talent, and then not getting any of the payoffs that we were promised in those 12 issues that really brought everybody back. And then the guy that was the architect for it left. He's just gone. This is literally the last gasp of X-Men. It's dead permanently. Sorry. As the biggest X-Men fanboy you will ever find, X-Men is dead permanently. It's not coming back. Sorry.
It's like Wolfstein 3D here says, thank you so much. The X Office without Hickman is as sad as of an affair as the Texans without Watson. Is that true, Josh?
Sure.
You're not a Texans fan? You're
Look,
that part of
I do not have time to watch football, so sorry guys. Wow. But yeah, I know there's something going on with Deshaun and
it's Deshaun.
Yeah, it's some potential criminal actions. But I know that. But hey, other than that,
well, let's just say this: the Deshaun Watson-less Houston Texans are going to be absolutely awful, just like most likely the Hickman-less X-Men office, and it's just too bad. Where do you think they go from here? Are people already canceling their orders? Are they willing to stick it out and see what's going on?
There are still people that are willing to stick it out. There are people in the store that X-Men actually was not their favorite book for whatever reason. A lot of people like X-Force, people like Hellions. Some people like Marauders.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either, but maybe I mean, hey, Shaw's in it. They're screwing him up, and that's kind of fun in X-Men stories in the last few years. But to go back with what Doc was saying, X-Men can't come back from this. The X-Men couldn't come back from being dressed up in leather during the Morrison run, and they did. And as it was bleak right before Hickman came on and did Hawks and Pox. So people were rabid for X-Men during that time, and I hadn't seen that way since Morrison, probably, on X-Men, and that was pretty cool. And I think it could happen again. You just need the names. You need to have something that makes them change. But we've seen things like end and stop and start and peter out. If they're going to, we just want to stay in phase one this whole time, it's kind of like, how boring, that's like Spider-Man never going to college, I
look at it this way. Look, you're going to have people that stick around. Yeah. But you have people that stuck around through the color era. You have people that stuck around through a lot of different eras that still stuck around after it became very obvious that Bendis's shit wasn't gonna work. There's always those people that stick around. The problem is it will never be that number one book again. This is Charlie Brown and Lucy with the fucking football, and you'll have 50,000 people, 30,000 people that'll stick around. You will never have this book selling 75,000 monthly again, ever in our in our lifetime.
I don't know. I could think
it
of
will
a few.
never. It will never be a 70. It will never be a chart-topping book month in, month out, ever again.
What if they brought back Liefeld?
Honestly, I don't even think that would, because then they know that it would get fucked again. That's the problem. You'd need 3 years, 4 years of completely uneditorially fucked comics being done by great creators before the people that they've pissed off and they've finally driven away will come back. It took Spider-Man 3 years. It was when it finally ended, when Dan Slott's run ended, that was baseline Spider-Man. It wasn't those are the people that were going to buy that book month in, month out, no matter what. 90% of them probably never even read the damn thing. That's how bad it was with ASM. It took Nick Spencer almost 4 years of doing that book to get it back to 75,000, and that's only 20,000 more than Slott.
I think it's only on the book for 2 years.
It's been 3. It was in 2018 that they launched that.
Yeah, it hasn't been quite 4. But point well taken. We got Federico De La Casa supporting the channel here. Hi guys, Hickman is the only writer of Mark Millar's caliber. Heard he's involved in some manner in the MCU. Do you think the lacking of good writers will change some heads up to bet on talent rather than the political identity? I don't know. What do you think about that, Joe? Is that something that you think is going to happen?
I don't know. In terms of Marvel and all of that, we're at a point for right now where it seems like both companies are going to spend as little as possible before something happens where they readjust. So I don't see things like that changing anytime soon. I don't think we're going to see either of them roll up a big truck of cash for an ongoing series. You know, maybe we'll get a couple of things poking up here and there, like we trick someone into letting us put, Hickman or Frank Miller's name on something to boost sales, but it's really just these other people doing it. Maybe we'll get some of that, but I don't see anything like that changing for a bit. All those people are going to be going to Substack or other forms that, Line Webtoon could relaunch what they were doing again a few years ago with originals. And they had like Fabian Nicieza and Riley Brown, some others doing comics there. So like, I think that's more what's going to happen than with the big two. So.
Yeah, but I heard the audience last week, 80% of them thought art was more important than writing. So who gives a crap about paying writers? Well,
I think it's because they can do 5 or 6 books a month, whereas an artist can do one.
They'll do it for peanuts, right, Joe?
Oh,
writers write for peanuts.
I mean, there
artists don't get paid what they're worth. That's what it's all about.
Oh my goodness!
No.
You were salty because he wanted to be a writer.
That's right. That's right. I didn't run in the right circles.
I've heard people getting paid as low as, not at the big two, some of these smaller publishers, like $10 a page to write something, like
it's worth it.
Man, I could do a lot of pages for $10 one day.
Yeah, you can.
It would be very good.
Yeah, exactly.
Put out some quantity. We've also got. I'm gonna mess this up. This is Per Eskens, and I believe this is Swedish. Kronos. Greetings from Sweden. First time watching the show live. My highest wish is that Franklin Richards says no more BS and resets the Marvel Comics universe to pre-AVX status. Now that would be something, Doc. You know, Scarlet Witch is out of the picture. Can we get Franklin Richards doing us a favor, snap us back?
I have long said that the solution to Marvel is a straight up Bobby Ewing stepping out of the shower moment where Franklin Richards wakes up with and you find out that his fever broke from like the Skrull flying monkey flu or some shit. And you find out that it's about 3 weeks before Civil War 1. Because I think that's where a lot of the character assassination and everything really took off. And we find out that basically everything since around the beat right before Civil War 1 was Franklin's kind of let's just say fever dream hallucinations manifested into reality. And now everything reverts back when his fever breaks. But the problem is and you could set up a lot of stories with some people remembering that future and trying to having it like, you know, trying
you
to
could have Blade or Bishop.
Yeah.
You want Franklin to get COVID and then like break off the sweat and then everything's okay is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, whenever he wakes up, we find out that the last 10 years, you know, or it'd be like 15 years at this point, have all been his fucking fever dream.
Well, doesn't Moira just need to die in the X-Men universe?
That's
and
what
then
we
everything's right back to normal?
Well,
we need to murder Moira.
We can kill Moira, yeah. But I think the problem extends well beyond just the X office. Everything since the beginning of Civil War has been a straight downturn, in my opinion.
Isn't that
You're
one of
talking Tony Stark, Captain America situation? That one?
Yeah, the first.
That's Civil War? Okay, very good. Just want to make sure. All right.
Haven't they set up a paradox that whenever Moira X dies anyway, all this stuff will be for naught and it'll be reset anyway?
Yeah, it's just her that's coming back with the information to lead the way.
But it's not expected. It's not.
She has to die before she turns 13, or it always resets.
Yeah, and they're going to give her a lobotomy at 12, and everything will be fine.
But no, my point here is I think the problems extend beyond X-Men, and Moira's deaths and resetting hasn't played out in the actual Marvel universe yet.
That's very true. I do want to say thank you very much to Pear for supporting the channel live from Sweden. That's awesome. Really appreciate that. We've got Everett Todd. What happened to the writer development program? What happened to that?
Wait, was that them that had one?
I'm assuming he's talking about.
It was
DC.
Had one.
Yeah, DC had one.
Yeah, DC had the writer program.
It's over. It's
pretty much. $7 a month, you can do it yourself.
Yeah,
did you try for that, Joe? Sorry, Josh.
I didn't, but you could. But people out there, you could potentially be paying $7 a month to take writing classes to make $10 a page.
It's a good investment, dude.
That is an investment. Dollar bills, y'all.
What were you gonna say, Josh?
Oh, I was just gonna say I know they did like 2 waves of the writers development class, at least 2 that they highly publicized and pushed. And then you had people come from the class and they did little like pickup stories here and there in annuals, and maybe got like a 3-issue special, and that's it.
Well, we've got Phil Kennedy Johnson. We've got James Tynan, I believe, was in that. I think Scott Williams or Josh Williamson as well.
You can't say
already.
Yeah, James was already publishing with DC prior to that. They may have put him in one of the classes, but most of the people that were in those classes, they did not go on to do.
No, there's been a couple of standouts, but you're right.
Yeah, for the most part, James took classes as well as Marguerite Bennett before the workshop.
Yeah.
Oh, because he was teaching at the university.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Marguerite Bennett was doing fucking. Wasn't she doing Astonishing X-Men like 12 years ago?
Yeah. Wait, was she? Wait.
No, that was
Lou.
Marjorie Liu.
Oh, Marjorie Liu.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think so, man.
Marguerite Bennett worked on Aftershock.
She did Mother of Madness. That thing was awful.
But she did what was it? The insects there. She did the Yeah, that like animal apocalypse book. I'm blanking on the name. Animosity.
Yeah.
She did Animosity, and I think for Marvel though, I think she did that A-Force all women's Avengers team.
Oh, yeah,
a few
yeah.
years ago or so. But
Right.
Yeah.
but
And
yeah,
then for
but
I was gonna say for
Matthew-
DC, she did Batwoman and then the Bombshells book. But both
yeah,
were
the Bombshells book I remember pretty well. But Matthew Rosenberg also took the course with Scott. Michael Marici took not the one that people could submit to, but they did like a pre-launch where they had a few people in class. I know he was in that, but then people that actually got in.
I wouldn't say they're ringers, but they're close to whatever is underneath a ringer. That's what those people are.
Michael Marici is awesome.
Michael.
Hey
Marici
Doc,
is
hold on.
awesome.
We got to get to MG here. We got MG with the $5 Canadian. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. We're at the point where customers need to abandon Marvel and DC and force them to do better. Stop buying. Stop giving their Hail Marys attention. What do you think about that, Tristan? Are we at the point where we need to abandon the big two? Just
No.
let them die.
No, I don't think so at all. I think that's I don't think that's the way to look at it. I think it's if you give the money to people that you actually like, who you actually are supporting, it'll show DC or Marvel which titles are selling. It'll show them who to rehire. Don't give I'm really bad about this, so this is going to be me calling myself a hypocrite. Don't give money to stupid stuff like I'm Not Starfire and review it on your channel. Wes, I know you did it too. I'm just saying.
Joe told me to. I didn't.
Totally Joe's fault. Don't do that. Don't give money to stuff that you don't like. Like, I'm really bad about wanting to finish a run. Bad. But there are certain ones like Batman, Catwoman. I can't even read. I stopped giving it money. Rorschach. I couldn't read. I just couldn't. So if you support the creators, I think, whether it be writer who I would say I typically go towards writers, right? Follow writers, but whether it be writer or artist, I don't think it's necessarily time to boycott everything. It's not like everything is bad. There's a lot of really good titles out right now, and not just at the big two. If you go to Image, like Noctura and Geiger, some of these small titles are really, really good.
I agree with Tristan on this one. In theory, the problem is, well, no, because the problem is in practice what they do. Okay, so you support great titles like Donny Cates' Venom was great, so people supported it. Donny Cates' Thor was great. Early Hickman X-Men was great. And what do they do with that though? So they're making a profit on those. So instead of looking and saying, hey, we should do more of these, they look at it as, hey, these are great ways to fund all the shit we actually want to make. And all you're doing now is giving them a larger bank account to fund.
It's like the Iran-Contra thing where they're taking the funds illicitly out of all the good stuff and funding all the
shit. Ollie North.
I mean, it's like Ollie North was running fucking Marvel and DC at this point.
We're gonna have Tom Brevoort on the stand. He's gonna be like, "This is how the program works."
I'm sorry, I was doing what Tom Brevoort told me to do. That's exactly what Jordan White.
Is there a possibility that we can make sure that Tom Brevoort goes to jail at the end of this? Because I'm all in favor.
He'll just get a radio show later. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, your point. Good point.
But no, like it doesn't exist, Doc. In theory, Tristan's right. Speak with your wallet. The problem is we're not in a world where they actually listen to your wallet anymore. They just look at it as you're now able to fund more shit that nobody else wants to buy.
I mean, yeah, but I kind of disagree at the same time because the market will decide. It really does. There was a long time where Max Visaggio was getting title after title after title. She's wrote one good that I like, which was Ginny Hex. But you don't hear her name. Obviously, they are listening a little bit, at least with creators, maybe not necessarily with titles.
I get that, except for all they do is replace bad generic writer A with bad generic writer B. They just find the next person on the list to stuff into that getting every fucking writing assignment role. Currently, it's Vita. The next, it's going to be Danny Lore. After that, it's somebody we haven't heard of yet. It's going to be a bunch of. It's just an endless cycle. They don't actually care about the person. That's doing this.
It's always like that. You get a new group of writers at DC, or maybe it's Marvel, or maybe they move over and then you need a new group of people. And it's just like in sports. You got a new guy coming in to replace Deshaun Watson.
You're
and you got to suffer through him a while, and he might not be good, but maybe his backup is. And
I get that. I mean, we had so many years of Howard Mackey.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like. It's a true statement, but I blame Bob Harris for that,
Chuck Austin.
But I'd also like to throw out there that I think Mags also did a great job on Lost on Planet Earth, edited by Joe Corallo, available now.
See, I didn't read that. I can't even speak to it.
I heard the thing about Mags is if you have a heavy stick, you can get some good writing from her. All right,
All right, so we got Wolfstein 3D also supporting the channel. I'm kind of with Doc. Why is everyone supporting Doc? This is bad.
I'm always right
for the entire channel.
Always right.
If Hickman didn't have the power to stop the X-Slag from sabotaging, who should come in and get his vision on paper?
Oh, I don't think it's going to ever happen, right?
I mean,
not
I think
when
at this
Jordan
point,
White's in charge.
that's what
I think he's the real problem.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get a different group editor. I'm curious to see, because technically Kevin Feige is over comics, and I think I think when you start getting some of these layoffs and shifts that we keep hearing about, that is inevitably going to happen. I think you're going to start seeing a little bit more control or a little bit more mandating. He's clearly not going to be hands on, but I also think that when the X-Men films start coming out, you're going to see that ship tighten up quite a bit. That's my opinion.
Yeah, but we've also got, thank you very much to Wolfstein. We got Kenneth Dowling. Well, the things going on with X-Men lately make sense with editorial interfering with Hickman. I would think his reputation would stop that. It's a shame we didn't get to see Hickman's complete vision. How many great stories has editorial interference destroyed, Joe? You're an editor. You should know.
I don't know. Ask us Straczynski, I guess.
Joe, quit breaking stuff.
How many stories have you ruined with your interference?
Well, I'm sure people will let me know their thoughts on Lost on Planet Earth, but no, it happens all the time. I mean, I think Pritch, I've interviewed a bunch of people, and I'm sure different people here who've interviewed different creators. You cannot find a creator that's done a decent amount of work at the big two that doesn't have at least a handful of stories of, this is what I wanted to do, Marvel said no, or DC said no, and that's why this story sucked.
In fairness,
I've even heard one where they agreed to it, and then halfway through they changed everything.
Right.
Like, this isn't what you paid me to do here. You removed all of the characters.
In fairness, though, there's a lot of times where writers just want to do stupid fucking shit.
Absolutely.
And they're like, hey, and then let's have, Wally West become a serial killer. See, that's one of those things that editorial
that one needed editorial interference.
I know. But they're like, instead, they've decided, like, hey, let's make Wally West a superhero. They're like, wait, hold on a second. We got to think this one through. Maybe serial killer instead, but he's a hero.
When you're pitching ideas, Joe, when you're sitting across from the person who's like going to make the decision, are you writing for them a little bit also, knowing like, oh, this person's really into science fiction right now, and I've got a science fiction. This is their favorite
character.
Yeah, I'm gonna pitch this. It's not always has to be Wolverine, but it ends up being Wolverine more often than not, right?
Sure. No, I mean, you kind of end up, whether it's subconscious or not, but usually you go in being like, look, if you're pitching a Batman story, for example, you're not going to go in there and pick like all D-list characters that he deals with, because DC is going to turn around and be like, that's great, but like, your Killer Moth Condiment King story isn't like, can we get the Joker in there, or can we the Penguin or something? Like, that. So you kind of go in being like, look, I got to figure out something that's like, you end up walking a weird tightrope. And I'm not sure how much of this actually applies, or if people have psyched themselves out into it. But it's like, okay, I got to do something that has some characters, but they can't be characters that everyone's using right now. But they have to be popular characters, and it has to be a story that's new and taking it in a bold direction, but very relatable and down to earth. And it also has to feel familiar while feeling radically different from everything that's come before. And we
need you to stop and go at the same time.
Well, that's how old Marvel pitches used to be, before all the social, everybody knowing each other. When you're writing scripts, it's just this one page of this fantastic storyline story that ends at the end of the story, the issue, and nothing changes at the end. It has to almost change everything, and nothing's ever going to change.
And it's funny though, because Peter David has told this story before of, to kind of push back against that idea. Even is he got the gig for Spider-Man 2099 because he was the only person to pitch a story that didn't involve someone that was a blood relative of Peter Parker. Every other one. Every pitch Marvel got was, it's, Peter's great-great-grandson or daughter is, has developed powers and now has to fight against Norman Osborn's great-great-great-grandkid, and so it is weird. It's all over the place. The key, I don't get it. I think it's partly because no one knows what they want on either side of the table, and then they accidentally come up with something they agree on.
We got Wolfstein 3D here. Why are people agreeing with Doc? Now he's being called charming.
Right.
The argument about supporting creators, I'm sorry, Doc's idea has its charm, but then you realize you have the same writers and editors and would speedrun to the current mess within tiers after reset. Doc's ideas have no charm. It's Doc. It's full of piss and vinegar. But that's kind of what happens here, right, Doc? As long as Jordan White's there, it's going to be the same mess over and over.
Yeah, you need that reset tool can only be used once you have competent people involved, like creator-wise, editorial-wise, even management-wise. And right now they don't. So, I guess don't waste it.
Very, very good point. We've also got MG with the $5 Canadian. The argument about supporting creators at Marvel DC is just going to make them gimmick those runs to keep the money coming in using variants, events, and other types of things, Tristen. So I guess he's on board with MG's on board with you. Like, nothing you can do. They'll just gimmick the hell out of everything anyway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course they are. Look at King Spawn. Like, super, super gimmicked. And not only that, but you're not gonna get away from that stuff. There's always going to be that speculation market when it comes to variants and key and collecting. So you're just not gonna get away from that. There's just comics.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the market. But that's what they do. If they lose some readership, they'll find a way to get the sales back up. Everett Todd says, simple solution: move Marvel to Nebraska. I like this idea. I lived in Nebraska for not too long. I'm from Missouri. I think that would fix everything, Josh.
Sorry, I was reading comments. Say that again. Move Marvel to. I don't even know what that means. Move Marvel to Nebraska.
You would have normal people.
Get them out of New York.
I don't think it's gonna do you any good. I mean, look, you moved DC from New York to California, and you still had a chunk of people go with them. I think no matter where you go, people are gonna follow the job.
Well, I think the problem is your choice was between New York and California.
If you mean to time out. If you mean to tell me that you don't think people would follow Marvel from California to Nebraska, where they're paying like $3,300 a month for rent, where they can go pay $800 a month for rent, so they're technically getting paid more for their job, you're crazy.
It would jump on that.
Come on.
Yeah, but we're We're seeing companies like Facebook and YouTube telling employees that if you move out of the area, they're going to start cutting your pay. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to be helping people.
My goodness, Uel, why don't you just bring the entire show down?
Well, I'm just telling you facts. They're like, oh, wait a second, you're not working over here where we get, we
need to make sure we're paying you sub-poverty wage, even for wherever you're living.
Exactly. Although I think Facebook and Google are pretty good.
We've got Federico de la Casa. I think your boy Zach was right. We will have a Vita singularity where every comic will be written by Vita and nobody can criticize her.
People criticize her all the time. Are you kidding me?
Exactly.
But their criticism is summarily dismissed.
Well, everyone's criticized.
By who? I think they're valid criticisms.
By the publishers.
Vita's not bad. I mean, she's not. I've never read anything by Vita that was terrible. Now, again, I'm not an X-Men person, but everything I've read by Vita, as far as like Static or she's written a Poison Ivy story, has just been meh. It's just kind of
Children of the
Tom
Atom
King gets just as many chances as Vita Ayala, Doc.
Yeah, and he's just as bad.
And he's getting Batman. He's getting like the big characters. So,
Yeah. Okay, and that's
fair.
fair.
Can you imagine an entire DC line written by Tom King? 52 books.
It would be so
all
sad.
Tom King. You're just like, oh my God. Nothing good has happened to any of these characters.
The only outcome of that would be an increase in the suicide rate.
Well, certainly the characters.
I can help Vita easily if I was working at Marvel increase the sales of her book. You just put a good artist on it. It will help.
She had Bernard Chang on Children of the Atom, and that was still fucking terrible.
I think if she has a good editor,
I meant a great artist. Somebody that people, oh my goodness, Stegman's doing this? I'll take a look at it. Nobody's running in for Bernard Chang comic books. I'm sorry,
goodness,
Bernard.
You besmirched the name of Bernard Chang.
Bernard Chang's great. Did you read his Teen Titans? It's beautiful.
He
great
is right.
Stuff.
No, Yule's right.
I mean, I'm just
Bernard Chang's a great artist, but he doesn't put asses in seats.
But the other thing about Vita is Vita can get exciting later. Just learn the craft, tell a good story. Maybe it's just going to be an editor or a spark or the right title, and all of a sudden Vita's your favorite writer. You never know when it's going to happen. But as long as she's not, God, I do it all the time. As long as Vita's not getting all messed, writing crappy books, too crappy, Doc. I think we can see some of these youngins get better, and we'll in the future be saying, "Oh, these are good writers."
She had a 5-star comic in Wonder Woman 750. Now, granted, it was 8 pages.
Well, 8 pages used to be hard to write.
Fantastic pages of Wonder Woman. We've also got Retro Man. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Maybe Hickman can do Space Knights or another cosmic book. He could also move to DC and do Legion of Superheroes, but I think he would kill DC 1 million, basically anything out of the way enough. I don't think he's going to do anything cosmic really at Marvel because that's Al Ewing's thing right now, but I think everybody wants to see him at DC on Legion, right? Right, Joe? Isn't that where he should be?
He should be. He'd be great. There's a few other people. Honestly, even Peter David would be good for a Legion of Superheroes.
Joe Corallo would be good for a Legion of Superheroes, and I think people should start. Doc, you need to get that campaign going, okay?
I know. I got Brett Booth some work on X.
I know. I mean, if you could do it for Brett Booth, talk about a scab, I know. You get something going for Joe.
I think I could get Joe work on Legion.
Let's do it. We got to get that hashtag going, people. I mean,
absolutely.
Seriously, let's get somebody we want in books we want to see.
That would be fantastic. But there's a lot of places for Hickman to go. Obviously, he's got his Substack, 3 Worlds, 3 Moons, a world that he's creating, and it sounds like he's going to be doing some event comics at Marvel. But I do think eventually he will be at DC and he'll do his Legion of Superhero story, which it sounds like is what he's been working towards for a long time. We've also got Kenneth Dowling, The Ultimate Silver Lining. I have for this is read Chris Claremont's X-Men run. You always wake up happy and go to bed happy. I don't know, Doc. That's pretty overrated, don't you think? Chris Claremont's X-Men.
I know, completely overrated. No, but who reads that? No, read that every day, and you will be happy and
Yes.
have fun.
17
fun.
years of sustained excellence. It doesn't happen all that often. We've also got Robert Willing. If you haven't been going to Robert Willing's YouTube channel, you're missing out. Fantastic content. He also does a lot of movie reviews and stuff like that. So definitely go check out Robert's channel. He's a good guy. I say you need a good editor, bring out the best and even the worst writer. Look at Tamaki on Detective, Wonder Woman, or Russell on Flintstones. Joe Corallo, is it really the editor that really elevates the writer and the artist?
A lot of times.
Don't be humble about this.
Well, a lot of times it can really help because a good editor curbs the worst instincts in creators.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where creators get all sorts of crazy ideas, writers and artists, putting certain references in or writers. I feel like this has been going on for a while, but you see this a lot now. Like they want to be really cute and clever, and they're like, "Oh, I really like this song, so I'm gonna have the character say the lyric, and then they're gonna reference this album." Like, do that stuff, and you kind of need an editor to be like,
yeah,
no,
Tom Taylor. Tom Taylor is the
that.
perfect example of this.
Mm-hmm.
You get to see him unfiltered and unedited over at Marvel, and you get to see him edited and kept in line on Deceased.
Yeah.
One ends
Well, we'll
up
be
being
talking
pretty
about
good,
Tom
the
Taylor a
other
little
is
bit
also-
later.
Isn't that the
Doc. Don't
last-
give away a segment.
Isn't that the last book, though, that you really need to edit somebody on, an Elseworlds type book? I mean, anything can happen, so who cares what they do?
Yeah,
Man, you just disparaged whoever the editor on with Deceased was. I'm sorry.
Well,
Whoever
what
that
I'm
was, Uel
saying
didn't
is,
mean it.
it might. Oh, that maybe this is not a good time to do this scene here, but overall, we're just going to kill off these characters and make them zombies. So,
It's true. We got Lake Kramer. It's funny. Tom King wrote a sort of inspirational story of Superman Red and Blue #6 that was happy, did not end with crying or make you depressed. I'll have to believe it I'll have to see it before I believe it. That doesn't sound like the Tom King I know. But I guess I'm reading Superman Red and Blue #6 for that and the story Ally. We've also got Per Erskines once again. Bring Abnett and Lanning back for Cosmic Marvel. Absolutely. Kyle Yost for X-Men and Zdarsky on Fantastic Four. Don't know who I want for Avengers. Who do we want for Avengers, Josh? Jason Aaron?
I don't know. I've heard rumors that I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask for this. I'm not as in tune.
I would put Donnie
Marvel
Cates on
writers.
Avengers. Who would you put on Avengers, Joe?
But is he gonna do it though? Because he's got his Substack stuff coming in. Like,
Listen,
I don't think he's
this
gonna
is
take
fantasy
something
draft
that's-
here, buddy.
Oh,
I ain't
I
asking.
didn't know it's fantasy. I thought it's realistic. Circle back to me in a second.
This is like that curveball kind of answer here, but I think what would be weird and interesting and would actually kind of be like a little bit of a shock. I don't know if this would actually sell comics, but what if it was that's a big announcement from Scott Snyder, hey, Marvel,
That would be cool.
We just grabbed Scott and he's on Avengers. And,
I thought he'd be great on Iron Man, but I think he'd do Avengers just as well.
Oh yeah, no, I think that could be an interesting choice. But yeah, they do really need to shake it up because both companies had kind of fallen into let's rotate the same 3 or so big writer names on different titles, and obviously Substack's throwing a bit of a wrench in that, but it'll probably end up being someone like Christopher Cantwell though. So.
All right, Josh, you said to come back to you. This is your final opportunity to win the fantasy draft for comic writing.
I'm gonna kind of go with a key staple of mine right now. I would say probably just get Tomasi. I think we need writers that are going to focus on characters, and he can focus on characters. He's good with balance and he's good with long form stories. So get him in there.
Absolutely, that is a great choice, and thank you very much for supporting us all the way from Sweden. Now let's move on. We've talked about Jonathan HIckman. We're going to talk about X-Men a little bit more here in a few minutes anyway. But we've got the big rumor coming out straight from Ethan Van Sciver that Superman Jon Kent was going to be coming out as gay. I've seen the pages from the next Superman, son of Kal-El. It certainly does not confirm that at all. I saw some people saying it confirmed. It definitely doesn't. But I can't say that it's not going to happen just based on what we're seeing at DC Comics. Tristen, what do you? I know you said there were some hypocritical things going on about this. What do you think about this rumor that's come out of Ethan Van Sciver?
Do it. Well, consider the source first. Just like DC was going to stop making books in June and everything else. Yeah, consider the source. Obviously, it's a rumor, but do it. It would set him apart from his dad. Do it. It would make him not a staple of his father. He's literally his father. Not only that, but everyone's like, make new characters to make him gay. The character's like 6 years old. He's never had any real relationships.
Well,
never.
You had Saturn Girl.
One kiss. Holy crap.
Well, we also didn't.
They canoodled.
We also didn't see his entire adolescence because it was in space.
Well, he was getting tortured, Doc. I don't think.
Yeah. I don't think there was any girlfriends during that torture. And
Maybe.
even if they're gonna bring up like Beacon, like the age range is so messed up now, so there's no issue with that. Like, I think it's hypocritical to say make new characters, and then when a character is pretty much brand new by the terms of legacy, look at like Batman being 80 plus years old. 6 years is nothing. Do it. Make him gay. Who cares? It's not going to change anything. And honestly, again, consider the source.
Absolutely. It is just a rumor. There's definitely no confirming. It wasn't certainly not confirmed in the next issue. What did you think about this rumor, Joe? Do you think this is happening? Is it a good change, or are you supportive of it?
I'm supportive if it's happening. I thought he was like kind of flirting and seeing Yara Flor in future.
In the future state.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
So so I do think this is likely not going to happen, and if it does, it would probably be more of a bisexual thing than a gay thing. If he's doing this in between, having that, thing with Saturn Girl and Yara Flor. So
I also heard something about Yara Flor. Is that really? I mean, she's kind of hanging out with that Brazilian dude.
At this point, everyone's gay, and I don't.
Yeah, but they never confirmed anything in future state. They were just like hanging out, like friends. So there was nothing really there.
But the thing with this too is to kind of expand on what Tristen was saying. In the past like week, we've had the pushback on Tim Drake being like, hey, I've been a fan of this character for decades. I've seen him date girls. I liked him with Spoiler. You can't do this with characters like that. You got to create new characters to do that. Don't retcon things. And aged up Jonathan Kent doesn't really have that many issues of comic to his names and isn't so fully established like that. So like this would be an example of a time where, sure, again, it's like, who cares? That's fine. I think what causes some of the knee-jerk reaction to this is the focus. And I think that's what people don't like. That's like, if he comes out and it's, again, another thing where it's like the New York Times runs articles and the Hollywood Reporter, and you get a lot of quotes from people being like, finally Superman's gay, and then people being annoying about it.
He's finally interesting.
I get people being annoyed by what would come off as like sort of like a corporate stunt, but to be annoyed by that idea is or just reading the comic, I don't think, like, it's like, why would you be so upset when it's that kind of character who's fairly new? But yeah, I mean, like, going back to, let's say, like when Captain America started dating Bernie Rosenthal, for example, I think the way things have changed is where you're getting some of this pushback, because it feels sometimes like, what if you went back to that like John Byrne, Roger Stern run And it was like, what if every cover was just Cap on a date with Bernie Rosenthal, and all the news and the coverage and the previews and all that were like, you know, they're dating, and oh, by the way, Batroc and Mr. Hyde are up to something, or yeah, you know, like Bernie and Cap finally, you know, he's dating someone who wants to be a lawyer, and oh, by the way, the Baron Blood or whatever, forget it. And,
I love those issues.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. So like, I can be empathetic when it's these characters with a long history. And I'm empathetic to people who are annoyed when it comes off like a cynical cash grab to just bump the numbers on a comic. That I'm sympathetic for to an extent. But just to be annoyed by that notion in an instance like this, I don't see it.
Can
I
we
think
go?
a lot of it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Tebia says, "Why turn Jon Kent Superboy gay? Well, he's Superman now. It doesn't make any sense." What do you think about that, Josh? Does it make any sense?
I mean, to me, it doesn't not make sense. So I'm not saying that it makes sense, but I think he's kind of a blank slate in what you want to do with him. And for me, there's kind of like I have 3 takes here, pretty much. One, more than anything, I'm still upset that they aged him up, because I think what I loved about Jonathan Kent was that viewpoint of innocence. So whether he's gay, straight, bisexual, whatever, I'm going to miss that innocence. And that has nothing to do with gay or relationships, just that, that period of stages before, like, oh, love and relationships. Like I will miss that. Secondly, even if you look at this from a character standpoint, we have to keep in mind that his formative years he spent in space with aliens and beings that do not meet our ideas of gender, in terms of how we view things here on Earth. So his idea of compassion and love is probably different, and you could use that as an excuse of he sees things differently. And then my third take is, what's playing Tummy Sticks?
It's from the movie. It's from what is that movie? Wedding Crashers. Tummy Sticks.
I'm just giving you a hard time because I laughed so hard when you said that in the other video.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy that part. I've got that
Tummy
back
Sticks.
a little bit. Lade Graver says, well, on Purchase Channel, it was pointed out as a kid he had a crush on the neighbor girl. That's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. He had dated Saturn Girl in Legion of Superheroes when he was aged up. And in Future State, we saw him dating Yara Flor. Future State, as far as I can see, everything that happened in Future State we're heading towards before we get this reset. And, had a crush on a girl and dated Saturn Girl. I don't know if that just completely precludes him from discovering anything about himself. I don't know, Doc. What do you think about that?
I feel like it's more cheap stunts. And I guess we're probably going to get to Future State eventually. And I mean, look, we're at the point where nothing fucking matters, so why not? Why not?
If you were going to change a character, that's correct. There's almost a blank slate here. He doesn't have a lot of history. We could point out the 3. Well, one of them's not even a relationship. If you're going to do it with the character, Jon Kent would actually make a lot of sense. So we got Kenneth Dowling, Jon Kent, Tim Drake sitting in a tree. KSSSING, first comes up. I would have put Jon Kent and Damian Wade. That's the one that,
well, yeah, but that'd be a little, illegal probably at this point.
What, Damian Wayne's, isn't he like, well, okay, maybe he's like 15 still.
He's like
Perhaps.
12.
He's like 12.
Underage.
I think he's 13. Yeah.
He's
He's 13. John's like 17. So this is getting
weird. That would be creepy. Tim Drake's like 25. That's worse.
Yeah.
If they were of age, it would make more sense for those two. But yes.
Well, we'll just age Damien up then. Okay?
Let's age Damien up. Absolutely. We'll have
something's going on the island.
Magic.
All these kids.
We'll have Ra's al Ghul will kidnap him. He'll take him on a quest. He'll lose him in space for 7 years. Then it'll return.
or he could just have him he finds an anti-Lazarus pit that ages him. There. Boom.
Wolfstein 3D is agreeing with Tristan here. That would have been a way better choice compared to Tim Drake. It makes turning Tim by way worse by proxy.
Agreed.
I think a lot of it is Iceman PTSD. Everyone's kind of suffering from how that was done. It was kind of damaged any sort of real gay representation from the beginning. So now everybody's a little like, I don't know if I want to like see this character, because what are they going to do? Are they going to radically change this character? And I think I don't see an issue with this one at all. He's literally his father taking over his father's mantle. Yeah. He has a best friend that is in the Bat family. Like, it would separate the men from the boys, I guess is the best way to put it.
Here's the thing. I don't even think it's necessarily Iceman PTSD. I saw that this was just pandering bullshit the way they announced Batwoman. Like the original release of the character back in the mid 2000s, when they didn't announce, hey, we're doing Batwoman for the first time. They're like, hey, we're doing gay Batwoman. And it became tedious pandering nonsense ever since.
Have you ever seen a company that makes money that doesn't pander?
Oh, I understand that, but anybody that, like, I don't understand how this marketing even works on people. Like, maybe I'm just too cynical.
Probably, but I think we all are.
I think there's also
cynical, Doc.
A difference too, because looking at Batwoman specifically is I think a lot of that marketing and kind of like discussions around it weren't necessarily the publishers. I think they drew some attention to it, but from a story aspect, they made sure to make a point that this is just an element of this character.
Yeah,
because when they first launched it, if I were to say anything defined Kate Kane, it was Soldier, who happened to be lesbian.
They had to follow through, but even then, she already had an uphill battle to climb with a lot of readers, like to even get respect as a character. And
but her story was so good, it demanded not only was she good, but her villain was good. Her love interest was good, and if they do that with Jonathan Kent in the same sense, it could work.
It took years for.
So it could take years for Superman.
I understand that, but we're not in an industry anymore where they have any time to make people buy into it, because they don't have the fucking patience. If it doesn't automatically sell inside 6 months these days, it's just canceled. Like, they actually
that's not true. We got Squirrel Girl went on well past their sell by date.
And Superman's been going. It hasn't been canceled or rebooted. I don't see that as an issue. If they can give
Superman just got
rebooted
rebooted twice within 2 years.
Okay, well, good point. Shut up. Anyways, if they can give the character just as long as Batwoman did, then it could be fleshed out well, and it could be. It wouldn't be an issue if bring the writers back.
And I'm good with that. But they're gonna have to, stick with it,
exactly.
And they're also going to have to accept because back when Batwoman launched, there wasn't the same narrative of, well, it's not an instant success because you're all bigots. That's what they're gonna do with this. It's not an instant success because you're all bigots. They let Batwoman not sell for a while. And it took and actually had to build it on its own cred. It had to actually build its own cred by putting together good stories and good characters and everything like that. And then whenever it got successful, then they're like, okay, see, it was fine. But now that's not the way that the media handles it. It's not the way the companies handle the publishers, the creatives. If it's not immediately accepted, they're just going to start calling everybody bigots. That's the major difference between now and then.
I think you need a timeout from Twitter. Just saying.
It could help. We got Darth Bobcat says, Jonathan, what friends don't pro each other on Earth? Huh?
That's what I was laughing at a second ago. I thought it was funny.
That was pretty good. We got Lade Graver here. Well, for Tim being bi, my issue is that if I say a vegetable clone of Ivy, if she dated Bruce Wayne, despite being bi, people would claim it was appropriating her from LGBTQ. It seems like there's a bias. Is there a bias, Joe? Do you think there's a bias in there? Could you take a character like Batwoman and maybe she has an awakening, even though she's relatively new character, and go the other way. I don't think it would happen.
One thing that has kind of happened is I know people remember a couple years or so. I think it's a couple of years ago. DC was making kind of a big deal, or it might not have been them specifically, but there were reports and there was a lot of like coverage of, Wonder Woman confirmed by, and that went on for a little bit and stopped. You don't hear anything about Wonder Woman being bi anymore. Wonder Woman was not a featured character in the DC Pride anthology, and they pulled out a lot of obscure characters for that book. You're telling me they were like, we're really trying to sell this book, so we need a Pied Piper story. Forget Wonder Woman. That wouldn't make any sense. So I think
Wonder Woman's become more important now that she had $1 billion movie. Perhaps.
Sure, but that's still an example of sometimes these things happen and people talk about it, and then when they stop, they can kind of go like, forget it, whatever. And
it's because heroes don't go south, and we can't have her being gay.
Whoa, hey! This is a family channel, Uel.
What?
What are you talking about?
The F word every other second.
That's a good point.
Okay.
Specifically to Wonder Woman, we can't say it's because of the movie, though, because even the movie hints at her being bisexual. There's a whole dialogue exchange between her and Steve on it. So
yes,
but,
she's very very awkward around men. What do I do with this?
But for whatever reason, like they kind of like they didn't really push that
have electricity,
too much, And they've
I think it's
queer
just
and queer friendly writers on Wonder Woman since then.
Yeah. So, we got Robert Willing once again. When DC introduced Kate Kane, the media saw her as a gay superhero. DC put a halt to stories until it died down because she was a superhero that was gay.
That's what they need to do exactly again.
Yep.
Well, the unfortunate part is if DC wants a headline, and if they wanted to go up there to the trending category and stay up for more than 5 minutes on a website, it can't just be that a superhero is doing something like heroic.
All right. So when she was first reintroduced to the DC universe, Kate Kane, it was in 52, and it was like in the 11th or 12th issue. There were 40 more issues to go. So yes, there was some time in between that and her role in Detective Comics. But it's not like they sat on her and let everybody stew on it for a while. It's just like she was in 52. They were developing the Question, the other gay character in the book, during that time also. Don't they get together also? I forget.
Yeah.
But, and don't get married, which was a bigger not getting married fiasco in my store, actually.
Yeah.
But Kate Kane was created so that Batman didn't look homosexual with Robin, so that he would look like
that was
a straight
Kathy.
dude. Well, all right.
To be technical, that was Kathy.
Thank you very much.
But
very good.
But no, it's interesting some of this stuff here too, because like I also think building up on what you were just saying, Wes, about if you want that coverage. I think there's a very good chance if DC or Marvel put a lot of things together and we're like, look, we're doing this, like they could have not done that and just been like, hey, we're launching a new Tim Drake series and we're going to build up a rogues gallery while he takes on some of Batman's worst villains and we've got this whole 2-year plan where Tim's going to go through this journey, and there could just be one line in like a whole couple of pages pitch on this amazing action adventure that says, and Tim rekindles, meets an old friend of his, and the two boys start it, and every outlet would ignore.
That would be the headline.
Yeah.
That would be it. So like, it's a weird position to be in because DC could put all that effort into something like that and have it just be the B or C plot that's running through, just like, in Amazing Spider-Man with David Michelinie and Todd, where there's the B and C plots with like Mary Jane and stuff like that. But it's really about all this other stuff. and people would just blow right past it, and it would just be like Tim Drake confirmed by. So,
well, isn't that exactly what happened? Like the whole story in Urban Legends was like, I don't know what this is. This is one date. Yeah. We're going on one date to see what this is. And then everything was like, oh my God, he's doing this, he's that. It was one date. It was a real like sweet ending to that story, even though they aged him down and he looked weird. But like it was just one date, and it was oh my God. And
I get it. I think part of the difference with that too is kind of to Joe's point. Like when you had subplots like that, they were almost presented as subplots, but they extended and ran the length of the book. So it was, when you look back at the run, it's a very like dominant part of the story. Whereas here, it's like, you know, there are people that are fans of Tim Drake have felt like Tim Drake has gotten the shaft since the New 52 started. And then you're going to highlight him. Yeah. But now you're going to highlight him, and pretty much like your only focus on the character is going to be him going on this date with this guy and discovering his assumed bisexuality. And then I think the other problem that came in here is you just completely skip all this narrative that could have been crucial between him and Stephanie. It just gets thrown away in a line pretty much. So,
oh yeah.
And then you have everyone around him being like, dude, what's wrong with you? Dude, what's wrong with you? Dude, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? We're worried about you. And it's like, you haven't had any of that to signify why they would say that, why they broke, like, you know, it just was not handled well. And I think that's the thing. If they had handled it better, you would have less people. You'd still have people upset for valid reasons, but you wouldn't have people as upset, and you'd probably have less people upset.
If they want this,
sorry,
I was just gonna say, if they want this to be a realistic portrayal of what it's like to be part of the LGBT community, right after that date, Bernard would ghost Tim and then block him on all social media, and then out of the blue, 4 months later, 3 a.m. on a Saturday night, start texting him up a storm.
That's what that needs to be what happens apparently in Urban Legends number 10. Like, you haven't talked to me in 4 months. I lost your number.
I was just scared. I was going to do something. Like, that's
I don't know what happened. My parents found my cell phone. I didn't know what to tell them.
I think at the end of Iceman's first date, he was trying to move across country and move in with the dude that he was hanging out with.
Well, that's kind of what Wolfstein 3D here is talking about. He says, please just don't put a gay activist type writer on the book with him talking about Jon Kent, who will only use him to go through all the gay tropes. You know, kind of like
Cena Grayson.
He still needs to be Superman, the superhero. You don't want it to dominate the character, kind of like what ends up happening with Iceman, especially when Cena Grace takes over those miniseries.
Yeah. Like, look, I'll just comment. If I were the editor and I was, you know, kind of overseeing the writer who's going to be handling Tim Drake, who it looks like it's going to, I can't remember her name. I'm sorry. Wes, jump in.
Megan Fitzgerald or something.
Yes.
Megan Fitzmartin?
Fitzmartin. There we go.
Martin, yeah.
You know, if I were going to be, you know, overseeing Fitzmartin, I would give her the challenge. Do your best not to write him gay. Like, any inkling that you want to do that's going to quote unquote make him gay in his appearance or how he wants to speak, don't do it. Write the character and then give him his like romantic subplot if you want.
It's gonna be a lot of TikTok videos, man.
Well, we've got a little interruption from Kenneth Dowling, who says, I wanted to share, I recently bought and read Avengers Under Siege hardcover by Roger Stern. This book was outstanding. And I love the retrospective you, Breen, and Joe did on this story. That was a damn good one, Joe. Like, that was
really good. I think that's one of the highest viewed retrospectives that we've done so far.
Man, they need to put Roger Stern on Superman Son of Kal-El. He could do the reveal, and it'll be amazing. That guy does not get the respect he deserves, Joe.
He absolutely does not. But
because he's the writer in tow of John Byrne, right?
Yeah, you know,
he's in the wake.
But he did a lot of good on Superman and Spider-Man and the Avengers, and he's
a top talent. Yeah,
he's criminally underrated. I really feel like people like him and J.M. DeMatteis and some of these others, like, were really doing incredible stuff. And then that like British invasion came, and then everyone was like obsessed with those writers. I like both of those kind. But,
I don't even know if it was now that that definitely played a part in it. But when you're
all right, guys, we're not going into a 5-minute on this one. We got other stuff to talk about.
This is when you're Roger Stern or J.M. DeMatteis or David Michelini, and you're working at Marvel, but then right next to you, you have Chris Claremont just blowing the doors off sales wise, and John Byrne basically taking everything he turns and turning it to gold. You just end up as like the undercard by
Walt Simonson's story.
You end up B tier just because of how good the A tier is. Sorry.
Very true. We got Max Santiago. Screw Tim Drake. The Wild Cards are back. What do you say about, or Wildcats are back? What do you say about that, Doc? The Wild Cards.
This is not. That's not George R.R. Martin's bad comic book. No, Wildcats are back, but they still don't feel like the Wildcats, and I don't. I don't like Wildstorm in the DCU. I'm just going to keep. I'm going to keep saying
with you
because they have never done it.
We don't
right
have the
yet.
time for that segment. At least an hour.
Oh my god, I'm so
we
excited.
gotta get a Wildcats episode.
Wildcats because you have the Authority running around right now. That's not the fucking Authority. You have that's basically the Order.
I love that first issue though.
Whatever the what was the whatever that thing the group was from that Superman story that Joe Casey did.
Yeah.
The one that had Manchester Black running instead of Jenny
the Elite.
Sparks. Yeah, the Elite. That's
the real Elite.
This is the Elite, but swapping in Midnighter and Apollo to give it cred. None of the rest of the fucking Authorities there. Then you have and then this Wildcats, it doesn't fit. It does the whole point of the Wildstorm universe is it had all that origin in Team 7, and Team 7 doesn't exist in this universe.
All right. Well, there you go.
Fair enough.
Doc. We got Erskine's once again. The problem with changing a character's sexuality is if they also change the personality like they did with Iceman, when they turn him into a sitcom gay character with this whole personality is that he is gay. And I think that is, that's why everyone's shell-shocked here, Joe. And for that, I can't really blame him. Nobody wants to see another Iceman incident.
No, I get that. I do know Cena. I like him a lot. I love a lot of his independent work, and obviously, editing stuff like Walking Dead and Invincible for a time. But ultimately, again, it's like the buck stops with Marvel. Marvel and Jim Shooter's done this on interviews. Other people have done this on interviews. Editorial and Marvel, it is their job to protect that brand. They're the ones that okayed that being Iceman's brand. Cena Grace didn't bust into the office and be like, you better let me write Iceman like this or there's going to be a problem. Like he
didn't even want to do Iceman, did he?
Yeah, I don't think he did. I think it was just like, I think he's said on multiple interviews is he's very much would like to write, all sorts of characters, but they kind of, pigeonholed him into that. I actually, I thought his sensational Wonder Woman #6 the other week was pretty good.
Oh yeah, that was pretty decent.
Yeah, so like he can do good stuff, but yeah, ultimately that's Marvel. Marvel's the one that okayed that being the characterization of Iceman.
Absolutely. We also got Kenneth Dowling. Shout out to Joe. Now we're giving Joe love. First it's Doc, now it's Joe. How about a shout out? No, never mind. Shout out to Joe on that retrospective. I love how you listed all the great stories that came from that period. Batman Year One, Thor, Mutant Massacre, the 80s, the best damn decade in comics.
Some say the golden age.
Certainly for the big two and a lot of independents. I also like a lot of what First Comics and
dude, I'm a Kamiko fan.
Oh yeah.
Grendel, Mage, Elementals during that time.
Oh yeah.
If you were into Robotech, those were good. Johnny Quest. That's just Kamiko.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, First and Pacific Comics, and oh my god, the underground, and then don't forget, there's a Turtles book that came out during that time also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Pretty good. Good time.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad we were able to get you some good comic books there, Ken. It sounds like you were able to discover some good stuff, and the 80s are great. I'm glad we're kind of dipping our toe a little bit later, and we were kind of stuck in more of the 60s and 70s, but it's been great doing the retrospectives. So this week we got a Contract with God, and then the next week is that really badass Hulk story, Joe.
Some Bill Mantlo Hulk. Got to give him some love.
Absolutely. Bill Mantlo era Hulk. That was absolutely amazing. Great. We already recorded that one.
Yeah.
That'll be out next weekend.
All right.
We got Exploded Pretty. Jean Grey's headcanon is now affecting the DC universe. Psychic Fujishis are dangerous, dude. Absolutely. Jean Grey ruined everything. I think we're gonna wrap up the gay Superman rumor. We probably talked about it more than
and it's just a rumor.
It is a rumor.
And, well, wrapping it up's responsible.
Absolutely, wrap it up. Wrap it up. Let's get into the trial of Magneto X Factor mess that we had laid out by Leah Williams. She went on a podcast. I believe it's the something of the Atom. I'm not really sure exactly the name of the podcast.
It was Battle of the Atom, but
Battle of the Atom. That's what it is. And Joe, she talked about how she got notified on issue 9 that it was ending at issue 10. She had to wrap up all of her story threads kind of in very short order. But also, what she wrote was not what ended up getting printed. It ends up being this kind of big mess fiasco leading into Trial of Magneto, which I will say it's her best X-Men comic that she's written, in my opinion. Still not all that great. Are you surprised that there's this level of dysfunction going on within the X-Men office, where they're altering people's stories without consulting the creator?
No. They've been doing this for a long time. I think Robert Kirkman did an interview with Comic Tropes where he even said similar things like the editorial would make changes. I know that one of the sticking points for him was they were like adding word balloons to covers that he worked for issues of his and didn't run by him the dialogue or anything like that, where he was like, I could have told them what to write or told them, please don't put word balloons on it, but there was no input or interest. I mean, this is the story of, people at sort of Leia's entry point in comics, and even a little higher. You constantly hear stories. If you go to enough conventions, talk to enough creators, the past 5-10 years of people being like, so I got to work on this book and my contract was for like 5 issues. Then I got it re-upped. I got to do another 5 issues. Then re-upped. They were like, keep going. You're clear for 17 issues. Then I'm writing issue 9. And then I get the call and they're like, it's cut at 11. So figure it out. Like that it's way too common a story. So honestly, I'd have been more shocked if she was like, oh no, they just let me do whatever I wanted and they let me finish the story the way I wanted it.
All right, I got to ask you a question. Marvel's doing, I'm just playing along here. Marvel's doing a romance cover month, and they have to have that cheesy thought dialogue with the women or the men, about the person that they're opposite. And they're going to have some words on it. Now, that's not a situation where Kirkman could be upset if they just put some claptrap on there. It has nothing to do with the story because it's a Marvel romance cover for Marvel Team Up or whatever he was doing at the time.
Yeah.
Correct. But when it's a regular cover, and I mean, how often are the writers even involved in the art on the cover anyway?
Yeah.
What are they the ones that put the word, the words in the word balloons though? Like all those comics in the 70s, had a lot of word balloons. I just assumed it was always like some sort of editorial thing that the writer had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
Kind of got off track.
No, you're fine. I think in that case, it was, especially in like the 70s, like before the shooter era in particular, everyone was wearing all the different hats. So I think it was a little different because I think you could have potentially some more input in that you're all buddy. It's like, oh, I'm editing this book and I'm writing this book, and we're kind of like swapping.
Right. And it's a studio also, and a lot of times.
Yeah, so it would be easier to catch people back then with stuff. You could be like, oh, hey, before you run that off to the courier, let me look at that. But yeah, I mean, that stuff gets changed. I've heard from other people that, dialogue's been changed on them and things like that last minute. And sometimes it's clearly the creative team, because as much as there are people who love, like Batman Hush, for example, that last encounter in that last issue, that dialogue was clearly changed, and it doesn't quite match the art. It's really awkward, but people kind of let it pass. And that's obviously because everyone guessed the ending that they were going for too early, so they changed it. But
yeah, because it was obvious.
Yes.
I've had conversations with a number of writers where they've discussed how much has been changed, and the scope of it varies too. I know creators that have mentioned that they were approached about telling a story, and they were giving the confines of telling a story. So a book would launch, and said book was supposed to support a big event, and they were told, you have to use these characters, we need these beats to happen, and that's why these characters are involved here. And you would get like 5, 6, 7, 8 issues in, and then the publisher would come back and say, oh, we're actually not going to follow through with this. Find a way to make it work. So you spent, like, at this point, 8 months building up to why these characters are doing this, and then get told, like, hey, this isn't going to happen. So I've seen it to extremes like that. And I've also seen it to extremes where, and I'll go ahead and say his name because he publicly commented on it, but I did a review of Nightwing once, and Fabian actually came in because I kind of scolded him for how bad some of the dialogue was. And he was like, hey, these lines are not my lines. I did not write that. And
convenient to say that.
He was very bold and upfront. And then we had like a little bit of a conversation. And he was like, look, man, I did not write this, just putting it out there. And I applaud him for being transparent. And I went back in the next review and kind of made a comment towards that. But yeah, there's time where like full sets of dialogue clearly gets changed, and it sucks because that writer is getting stuck with what's potentially crappy dialogue. And who knows, editors might be stepping in and making some good dialogue for people too. You don't really know. It's always kind of this like give and take game.
And I kind of was slamming Scott Lobdell online yesterday to somebody, and he's horrible. So
what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Scott Lobdell's one of the worst writers out there.
What?
But that's
shut your dirty mouth.
I'm sure a lot of his really bad writing probably had to do with Bob Harris sticking his fingers in there also. No, all of his stuff is bad. I'm sorry. But that's okay.
I mean, at least the
pretty good. Tristen.
Look,
I love Scotty Lobdell.
Next, you're going to tell me you like Tim Seeley.
I don't mind Tim Seeley.
Wow.
I don't mind
Fuck
Tim
Seeley.
Yeah.
If you
you guys all play the politics game, just ignore them.
No, it has nothing to do with
you will enjoy comics so much more.
He's batting like 350 with me.
No, Scott Lobdell, you have to suffer through Uncanny X-Men and everything in the 90s.
Okay, well, I'm talking about his DC work.
I liked Lobdell. I thought he did yeoman's work running with all the stuff.
Running Chris Claremont out. Yeah, I know. I agree.
No, he didn't run Chris out.
He was involved. He was the person that they placed in. They're like, hey, we got rid of our puppet regime. Now we're gonna put a new one in.
No, hold on. They had already forced him out, and then they brought in John Byrne. Byrne quit. And
because he saw the writing on the wall too.
I know.
The AEW's taking over, is what he said. I'm out.
I know. And Scott Lobdell happened walking down the hall. Bob Hare grabbed him and said, "Dude, we need you to script this, and we have like 3 days." And that's how he got the.
And he wrote like that X-Men. The rest of his career.
Okay.
It looks like
I didn't want to say this.
Trial of Scott Lobdell.
Oh yeah.
The trial of
so
Scott
when
Lobdell.
you're bashing Leah Williams out there, remember Scott Lobdell, okay?
I didn't want to say this.
Scott Lobdell.
God damn it, Doc! You've already said you like Scott Lobdell. We know that. I need a little intervention. I want to say thank you, everybody that's been joining us. We've had a very wonderful comment section here. If you're enjoying the conversation, definitely give us a like. Give a little thumbs up action. I think we're at 78 now. We've had well over that many, people within or watching the channel for quite some time. So let's see if we can get it up closer to 150. That'd be great. I really appreciate it. All right, Doc. would you like to talk about Scott Lobdell some more?
No, I kind of want to talk about the trial of Magneto.
Yeah,
All right,
you
Tristan,
do.
what did you think of the trial of Magneto? You hadn't read an X-Men comic in a long time. Was it great?
It wasn't terrible.
There you go. That's my thoughts.
It wasn't awful, but not understanding what led to this also had an issue. So I went to I may have cheated and went to Comic Breakdown and then looked at a couple of the other ones leading up to it. But I did see online some people criticizing her brother's reactions, Quicksilver. Like, I don't see an issue with that. Like, he thinks his sister's dead. But my question is, when it comes to this, is like, are they able to bring people back?
Yes.
From the dead? So what's the point of life? Like,
yes.
If you're able to bring people,
it's one of the mysteries that won't be solved by Hickman because he was run off.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I don't get there's no stakes anymore.
This is the thing that I've been warning about since the beginning of like the end of House of X Powers of 10. I knew that this was going to be a problem. It removes all the stakes.
Yeah, there's nothing there. Like, if you don't have a fear of death, then you will never actually live. What's the point?
Yes, you are completely correct. This is still an ongoing problem, and it's been a problem for 2 years now, and it's going to continue being a problem for as long as they still do resurrection as a thing, not like you had to find a way that person that you thought was dead wasn't really dead, or they came back to life. You have to find a way to do that creatively inside the story instead of just, hey, everybody that dies, we just stick them. We just have these 5 mutants, grow them in a fucking egg again.
Yeah, boring.
Yep.
What did you think about the writing, Joe? Because I had a problem with all the characters presenting information, but they're all presenting the exact same information. It's like, I don't need 4 people to tell me the exact same thing. It is like, this is gratuitous and overdone. I understand you want to highlight each character's ability to look at the crime scene and come up to with an idea of what happened, but they literally were all saying the exact same thing. It was like, man, this is really boring.
Yeah, the art was really solid in this issue, but a lot of the dialogue was pretty stilted and awkward at points, especially at those moments like you were talking about, where it's like they're talking about the evidence and this and that. There's some character moments that work, and when people are just like talking to each other, but it felt a little shoehorned in when it would just be a character kind of explaining what's going on. The other thing with the way this was written, and maybe it was written this way, maybe it was just drawn this way and it wasn't in the script, I don't know, but why of all people would Storm vote no on resurrecting Scarlet Witch? Like, what was that about?
Maybe she's
she's
on a rock. I don't know.
With her because of no more mutants. Do they still? I mean, have they not gotten past that yet? I mean,
well,
they're hanging out with all these criminals.
That leads into Lane Kramer's comment here.
Yeah.
He says, "Was it me or was it telling a moment how bad the situation of X-Men is that the mutants celebrated Wanda's death and it was joyous? It felt creepy." Well, they've been calling her. What do they call her? The Pretender Doc.
Pretender.
Yeah, they've been telling campfire stories about how evil she is.
They're treating her like she went to Substack. Yeah.
But
that's
honestly,
how it is.
It was it was a little awkward because I wasn't sold either way. I wasn't sold on the mutants celebrating it enough because it seemed like it was like this little bit where it's like, oh, let's cut to this and there's this party going on, and it wasn't a strong enough characterization for me either way that they were celebrating, that they were upset. It got the page real estate spent too much time on trying to be like, ooh, let's see
a procedural.
Clearly. Yeah,
dude, that first part was laborious to get through.
It was a lot. Yeah.
Not only that,
I mean, and oh my god, it was bad.
Well, it over-explained everything.
Yeah.
There was a lot of everyone reached the exact same conclusions, which
like everybody did.
Yeah, literally everyone reached the exact same conclusions. Characters that shouldn't have any skill at any of this shit somehow have become master criminal investigators. Like fucking iBoy. Like
hey, iBoy. Yeah, totally.
Came off as completely insane.
6
He
months
should
ago,
eventually become insane. I would love that.
6 months ago, that motherfucker was in high school. How in the hell is he figuring out
He got an education from Logan. It's okay.
None of this like it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's bad. It's eminently just mediocre and
no. All mutants can know anything because Xavier just has to put whatever in their head. They know languages and all sorts of stuff.
It's like we moved into the Matrix and like they're programming like all the anatomy and forensic pathology. Like, oh, did somebody upload that to him now? So now he knows all those things. Okay, cool. Everyone's a genius, everyone's a super genius, and everyone knows everything about everything. Also, Rachel's powers don't work that way.
There's also that. Why was it that there's no other suspects than Magneto? Like none? That doesn't make any sense.
Especially, Polaris.
Yes. That's a big one. That's a really big one. And also just Scarlet Witch's powers also don't work that way, where it's like, oh no, they used metal to bind her hands.
So I guess she couldn't make like fancy hand gestures to
not when they're wrapped up. Magicians can't do that.
There was magical steel.
Yeah.
It's that Mysterium. It's that Mysterium stuff.
Maybe Dr. Robert Willing is calling you out, sir, and yet it's okay for a soldier like Bishop to investigate Emma Frost's shattering and Morrison's new X-Men like he was a detective.
That was an awesome issue.
Bishop was an actual. He wasn't a soldier. He was a cop. He was a cop in the future.
Yeah, XSE, right?
Yes,
he had those glasses on that cover. What was that? Phil Jimenez, I think.
Oh, sorry, awesome. Robert Willing, you lose.
So good.
Round.
Bishop was an actual cop.
I was like, oh my god, Bishop's so cool.
He was a cop in the future. He was a cop in Extreme X-Men. He was a cop in the one that was set in District X, that was set in Mutant Town. He has always been a cop. Not military.
Doesn't mean he's a detective though.
No, but
he was just a cop.
He was a
just
cop.
Getting information.
His job was
writing stuff down.
Well, he was an investigator of sorts, but he was like the guy that he was like a tracker in the future.
Yeah, he had a bus. What was that dude's name? Fitzgerald, right?
Trevor Fitzroy.
Fitzroy. Sorry.
Yeah, he was chasing down criminals in the future before he
was just another dog.
Why isn't Bishop on the X Factor team then, Doc? This doesn't make any sense. Why is iBoy there?
Because they had to put lame people on it. That's why.
Yeah, they had to put a bunch of people nobody gives a fuck about on Leah Williams' book because generic Duggan already took him for.
See, this is the problem with editorial. You can't have too many titles. It doesn't even matter if you have a bunch of writers. They're going to fight and say, Hickman, you're wrong. We got to stick in phase 1.
Yep.
I don't know. What are you thinking, Josh? Now that you've read a couple of issues of this X-Men, are you all in?
No, definitely not all in. Hell no. I mean, look, I'll dip my toes in from time to time. I'll say, as unlucky as I was to start with X Factor 10, I was also kind of lucky to start with X Factor 10 because everything going forward really is better. But no, this was just a weird book. And with the points that y'all have brought up, I'm in complete agreement on. Like, I don't understand why Magneto was just the only person that was accused. I thought the whole, investigation.
Mystique looks like she's probably guilty. You got Polaris has the same powers. You have Exodus, who's been literally preaching to the children of Krakoa what an evil person this is. There's a lot of people with motive.
I mean, look. So as someone who has pretty much only read House of X and Powers of 10, and then kind of skipped everything because I heard it was garbage, and then picked up because of these shows, I came into this issue going like, okay, Professor X, right? Like he's kind of guilty in this because he's like mind fucking with everyone. He's got to be, right? But that's an outsider's perspective.
You got to read Way of X number 5, and it'll explain that for you. Or you can watch the video tomorrow where Doc and I talk about it.
All right.
Also, just everything about this was stupid, but why would Xavier wear a metal, like, wouldn't they have come up with a thing that he could wear all the time that Magneto couldn't crush his head with? Like, I mean, come on.
You'd think fiberglass would be an option.
And on top of that, it's like, even after he does that moment, which this is, again, the kind of moment where you come up with as a writer and you're like, oh, it's going to be badass. But then it turns out it's like, oh, he did this, and then Cerebro looks exactly the same, and then he takes off the helmet and he's just got a couple of like cuts on his head. It's like, okay, this is not as cool as you think it is. And also, is there a reason they're assuming only one person killed the Scarlet Witch and that no one else was involved? Like, that it wasn't a conspiracy? Like, could you imagine an assassination of someone as high profile as Scarlet Witch in this universe during a gala with so many people outside coming in that they haven't tracked? There are literally hundreds of mutants, it looks like, openly celebrating, and then being like, this is clearly the work of one person.
Xeno literally skinned a mutant, patched her skin onto their own uniform so they could infiltrate the Krakoan airspace.
And it's not like the U-Men aren't out there grafting mutant organs onto them from the corpses of all the dead fucking mutants that so that they get their powers. And it's not like, you know, the Red Skull didn't already recently graft Xavier's brain onto his own to become the Red Onslaught. I mean, none of those shit ever happened. It absolutely got to be this dude. The only person that can mess with metal, except for his other daughter, that is also running the investigation.
That should be the name of the series, Murder on the Krakoan Express.
I like
Everybody's a suspect.
That's what I was thinking. And it would have made way more sense if it was just, let's lock it. Like, we got to lock down Krakoa and do all this. We have to pull in all these like bigwigs that came and interviewed him. Like, how did we not get an interrogation scene with Seth Meyers?
Or Kevin Feige.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and yeah, like, well, in fairness though, Wanda did actually wait to show up until basically the party was over, and then just hang out with Magneto, like when everybody was like cleaning up all the, you know, solo cups and putting away the beer pong table. So she did show up like after everybody was gone. So none of the celebrities got to see her.
Well, thank goodness for that.
Yeah. That would have been awful if Conan O'Brien got to, or Eminem.
Yeah.
This is why, once again, I'm going to go back to fan casting for something. Fire Jordan White, hire Annie Nocenti.
All right, and you know what else? And I don't usually suggest that they should have done this. Those issues that had celebrities involved, they should have got Salvador LaRocca to draw the faces.
Yes.
Yeah,
he's got the files ready to go.
All right, before we end this up,
who they were.
Retro Man's got a question, and we weren't going to cover this, so I guess we'll talk about it here. Don't mean to derail the conversation, but it's a beautiful segue into what we're going to talk about next. But thoughts on Moon Knight #2, in case you don't get to it. Is there a better time to talk about this? Nope, now's the time. I was going to recommend this later. I thought Moon Knight #2 was great. I thought it was fantastic. Anyone else read that one?
Halfway.
Nope.
You didn't get the big reveal?
No, there's a big reveal. Oh, good, because it is a good issue so far.
No, I don't want to give the spoiler away.
Good.
Don't spoil it. I'm
no
reading it
spoilers.
this weekend.
You guys, I only read half of it.
It is definitely on my read pile. I didn't get a chance to get to it, but I love the first issue, so I am excited
on
to
the
read
top
it.
now.
I had to prioritize the stuff that I'm working on, unfortunately, which isn't.
I could
always
see some
great.
people not liking the resolution that happens within the story, but I thought it worked perfect, and it really showed a new level of what's going on with Moon Knight. I thought it was really effective. So I thought it was great, Retro Man. I'm glad you brought it up because it was. What the hell happened to Jed McKay? I read his freaking Taskmaster Uel, and it's absolute garbage. And he's clearly writing a Skeletor comic instead of Taskmaster. And then when I get to Moon Knight, it's dope.
Again, I mean, I think kind of the theme of the show is, what is going on behind the scenes with these people? Are they being forced to do something? Did they want to do it? A lot of times, in the past, even, it was just because somebody wasn't doing something and they wrote, Dan Slott wanted to write something, so he was on Ren and Stimpy, right? You have got to get your break and get your foot in. And he is doing those kind of humorous one-shot War of the Realms type things, and kind of doing Black Cat, and it's kind of pushed over here where nobody really pays attention to it except for the people that get it. And this is kind of his first time. I don't know. Again, I don't know how that Taskmaster was supposed to be, but he's doing pretty good on Moon Knight, and I'm looking forward to if he does another character that I actually like more, I'll be happy. Finally, Donny Cates is on a book that I dig, like in Thor and Hulk. But Guardians and all that other stuff, I kind of just suffer through to see if I like, if he's still pulling it out. So that's kind of where Jed McKay is for me. And now he's on Moon Knight, a book that I like, and
I love the Capuccio art. I think he's doing really good.
Yeah, it's cool. It's not over rendered.
Yeah, Moon Knight's like a little more sketchy than all the other characters. He stands out.
Yeah. I mean, I could see where some people might not like it, especially Marvel fans. Sometimes
is Jed McKay another Canadian? Because maybe he had a Chip Zdarsky moment where they threatened to revoke his travel visa if he tried humor anymore.
I always give Canadians a chance.
Yeah, but they just
a second chance.
Canadian,
but I don't know. I thought he was like a TV guy or something like that. I could be wrong.
Jed McKay is a Canadian children's TV producer, writer, and composer.
All right, there it is. That explains why.
Wait, no, that's a different Jed McKay.
Oh, that's a different one.
Are you sure?
Shoot.
Yeah, Jed. Well, yeah, Jed McKay from Moon Knight is like MACKAY.
This is the MAC.
Oh, it is the same guy. Yeah, I think he's the children's movie. He's Canadian. Makes sense.
See, Canadians and their terrible sense of humor. When he tries to actually write something,
how dare you? SCTV was way
Strange
better
Brew was
than
pretty
SNL.
good.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, the problem is their humor has not really evolved since Strange Brew.
So you try to start a war with the United Kingdom, then you decided to diss everyone in France, and now you're going to diss all of our Canadian subscribers viewers.
Canadian comedy people, at least,
Yes.
How about Norm Macdonald?
Yeah, man. God.
Just wait
about Norm.
Just wait until I get to Australia. They're gonna feel my ire next.
I don't even want to get into Australia. But thank you very much, Retro Man. Absolutely. I love Moon Knight. That was a really good issue. I'm definitely digging what they're doing there. Let's get on to the next topic. And unfortunately, Tristan's not here, but we'll definitely get her thoughts on that one. But,
I'm back.
Okay, Tristan, we got this latest issue of Tom Taylor's Nightwing. In the very beginning, Alfred, essentially, he inherits $1 billion from Alfred. And I'm like, where is this going? Why is Tom Taylor doing this? And then we find out this week, it's just so that Dick Grayson can use the money and tackle all the problems like Tom Taylor has with the world. It's like, that is really lazy.
The homeless again?
Well, that's the main thing, but he's also going to fix the pay gap, and he's going to provide for affordable housing and renewable energy. Like, who goes for a Nightwing comic to see that stuff, Tristan?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with what he's trying to do, separate himself from Bruce.
It's lazy writing. He could have gone out
lazy?
And all these. Here, let you inherit $1 billion. So 6 issues later, you can give it away and virtue signal all the stuff that I would handle if I was a billionaire.
Yeah, but he's showing that he is different than Bruce. He's showing that
Who thinks that Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson are remotely the same?
I mean,
they're completely different characters.
I don't think it's lazy. I think it's showing his separation. I think it is showing that he is generally wanting to help the people of Bloodhaven, which Bruce does often. I'm not saying he doesn't, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to help people.
I'm not
set up
saying
in
that.
the beginning. He set up in the beginning that there was a bunch of homeless crisis and it was generally affecting the younger people. He, in the annual around Christmas time, he did this whole thing where he helped a girl that was trying to kind of steal from this corporation, and he set her up with a place. I don't see an issue with that. If I think generally, if people had that amount of money, or rather, somebody hearted like Nightwing is, they would probably do something like that. I'm not saying work on climate change or anything like that, but there's no issue here with working on homelessness when it's absolutely affecting Bloodhaven.
So I'm going to jump in. I think the themes of this are spot on, and I think it fits Dick, and it's something he would completely do if he had the money. I think my issue is how Tom Taylor went about doing it, and it's this notion of people shouldn't have billions of dollars, and because they shouldn't have billions of dollars, we're going to give all of it away. Versus the reality of like, okay, I'm a billionaire now. I need to do something good with my money. I need to figure out how I'm going to do it. And everything he wants to do is fine. It becomes a problem when he was like, okay, so let me give all of it away, because now it's all out the door and he can't do anything anymore. Whereas if you were to say like, I'm a billionaire, I need to actively work to do these things to help my society and my community, it actually becomes a part of his narrative rather than like, look at me, ta-da. And that's where my issue comes in. So I think the commentary on billionaires are bad, especially considering his background, being raised by practically two billionaires, and then deciding, I'm just going to give it all away because, I shouldn't have it. Like, no, you're like, probably you're more deserving of this than Bruce, and you're probably going to use it wiser. And I think if Tom Taylor I think if Tom Taylor had maybe taken that approach, I wouldn't take issue with it, because I would like to see Dick's stance on being a billionaire and how he's going to use the money over Bruce's. And Bruce has done like great things, like, and it's been in Batman books and also side books like Catwoman, but he's built Leslie Tompkins is working and helping the lesser community with her clinics because Bruce is funding that, so there's all this stuff that's been going on. So to act like that doesn't happen is kind of crappy. And then this whole,
I'm okay with billionaires giving money. I mean, that kind of stuff. I just don't know if that's necessarily something you want to read in a superhero comic book, and by the way, Fantastic Comics has a Patreon billionaires out there, so you can do a one-time drop if you want. I don't care. It doesn't have to be a recurring fee or anything like that. It's just Fantastic Comics. So feel free, Tom. Put it in.
I don't know, Tristan, does it feel like Dick Grayson would schedule out a press conference so we could talk about all the wonderful things he's doing? He feels a little more low-key than that.
Well, yeah, I agree. I do think that the execution was flawed.
That's my issue. That's the stop trying. He's not trying to write a Dick Grayson story. I'm sorry.
I like the stuff that he did with Superman. I like that he went, and even I know he's setting himself up because he brings up John, right? But he is putting it out there that he looks up to him. And then also that Superman, looks up to Nightwing in a way too. And Alfred, they honored Alfred really well. But the way that they went about it was flawed. I agree. I don't care what Tom Taylor rather thinks about billionaires. He literally, like, you can go to his Twitter for that. It's something I ignore. But the way, I absolutely think it is in with character that he would do this, just not in such a grand scale.
I know Joe wants to go ahead, Joe.
No, I have something I want to add, but before I jump in, because I know he's been wanting to say this since we first started, I wanted to give Doc an opportunity to talk about shooting Tom Taylor into the sun.
And Australia.
There you go. Kenneth Dowling wants to hear it too. He says, I owe Doc flowers. Kenneth. Hey, I owe Doc a double barrel middle finger for being a jerk off. That's what I owe Doc. I don't owe him nothing.
Hey, look, once again, I'm right on a writer. I'm always right on writers. It's just This is ridiculous.
He's a flip-a-coin writer. You can't be always right on him.
No, you are, because all you have to do is figure it out. One company has weak editorial. The other one has strong editorial, except for on writers that have become proven commodities, and then they stop having control. So you're getting Marvel level Tom Taylor at DC now, because DC no longer has the editorial control. No, because they no longer have the editorial
nothing else
oversight
of this
Tom
story
Taylor.
was out of character.
It doesn't matter. Give it time. Every single month, he's going to get less and less editorial oversight, and every month he's going to get worse. Give it time.
All right, can I ask you if Dark Days is going to be good?
Say something, guys. Joe wanted to say something.
Well, the thing here is, I definitely want to point out the action bits earlier in the issue. I thought they were great.
First half was dope.
I thought that was really good, and I can kind of like the way with the making the press conference and stuff like that. You know, maybe they needed to just do a little bit more prepping for that, but I get the idea of Dick kind of being like, "Oh my God, I have all this. Like, what do I do?" I guess people have press conferences, right? That's what you do.
That's what Bruce would have done.
Yeah, so I can see that, but also I think there's a lot of assumptions on where Tom Taylor's going to take this story. But like keeping in mind, he recently tweeted something along the lines of he's going to be writing this character for a while. If that is true, even though whenever I see writers do that, I'm like, you're jinxing yourself. Don't put that out there. But if this is a long-term story, is going to be on the book for a while, it's very possible this doesn't go the way Dick wants it to. And that he's going to learn a harsh lesson, and he's going to have to come back to Bruce and eat crow after he went to Superman, got that advice, went to Bruce, and Bruce was kind of like, it's up to you. You do this, and that over the next, 6, 12 issues or whatever, it all falls apart, and then he has to come crawling back and be like, I get it now, Bruce. I understand what you...
I'm willing to bet you a trade paperback that my assumptions on what's going to happen is correct, and that is not what's going to happen.
That's not going to happen, because this is Tom Taylor writing into comics that stupid fucking recurring Twitter thread that goes around once a year about how Batman is a problem, and he's just a rich guy beating up poor people, and if he really wanted to save Gotham, he'd give all of his money to charity. This is that same fucking Twitter thread, but turned into a comic.
All right, Doc, we got a random positive thought here from BM. Finally bought Hulk Maestro trade paperback. Sorry, Tristan, my LCS didn't have Vita Ayala's Wonder Woman War anymore. Gonna buy it online. Love Nightwing. Hulk Maestro
BM is awesome. She's awesome.
I was going to jump in on the Nightwing thing real quick. We kind of touched on this in our video, and I didn't articulate it well. But I talked about how this issue felt rushed in a lot of ways to wrap up stories. And I think that's something to take into consideration. If you really look at the pacing that he's been setting up with his run so far, to me, it's very clear that this fear state interfered with whatever the original plan's in for ending this 6th issue. Because I don't think this was meant to be the ending. I think they were going to do something to set up more of a cliffhanger with Heartless to carry that on into the next arc. And I think that, we're going to have two issues of pause to do Fear State, maybe more. So I think they kind of shifted things around, but that's my stance.
Robert Willing asks.
Oh, go ahead.
All of this is because we know Taylor's political views from his social media. If we didn't know any of it, would you feel the same way? How would I know? I cannot turn back the clocks in time.
Look at writers like Denny O'Neil. We didn't know his political leanings, and we looked at his stories in a very different way. Social media has made us literally kind of look at everybody in a different light as far as writing. And I think him writing Nightwing is looking at a little bit different view than what Bruce would as criminals. Like, crime is caused by the lack of job opportunities and stuff like that, and in poverty. So he thinks that I think Joe's on the right trail with that. He thinks that if he solves that poverty, everything's going to go away, and I think it's going to blow up in his face.
But again, this goes back to him being raised by 2 billionaires. He's going to know this is not the answer because he's watched Bruce do this for years.
Bruce hasn't done this in that sense. Yes, he donates to charity, but he hasn't ever given all of his money away. It's been stolen.
No, but my point
Bruce is smart enough to know that you don't give $1 billion away.
Exactly,
Correct,
and he's got to learn the lesson.
But my point is, he's going to know this from living with Bruce. He's going to know that, okay, if I'm going to make this effective and lasting, I can't just give all my money away out front. But he also knows because Bruce has done so much, much for Gotham. And yes, he's got that Playboy aspect, but he also isn't like every time he's doing something, doing a press conference, he'll do quote unquote like fundraisers, and he'll be there at the launch of something. But for me, I to kind of circle back to the point of this is I think there are certain writers that have a heavier hand currently with their political stances, and you do see it. Even if I didn't know Tom Taylor,
I would have still read X-Men Red and Wolverine from Tom Taylor.
Even with the Suicide Squad, he had a few moments of having a heavier hand in his political stances. And with this, you see it to a degree, just his commentary on billionaires. And we can talk about Denny O'Neil, but I think when you go back to like the 70s and 80s, they were definitely writers and they had leanings, but they were also more in tune with like, let me try to present multiple aspects of this political issue. And that's where the difference lies. Like, you don't get that nuance, and too many people are just going super heavy into whatever they want to push. And I don't think, well, at least with DC, Tom Taylor isn't that terrible, but he has moments of pushing it.
Dude, he was horrible in Marvel.
No, I know.
I read his Spider-Man one, and it was like
Friendly Neighborhood
shit. Oh my god. I assume that a lot of what he thinks, I probably agree with, politically, but I don't want to see it in this stuff, and I'm sick of it. I mean, I'm going to tell a whole different lesson with this, and it's Peter Parker and Dick Grayson are kind of like similar in a way, Yes. God, I just can't. I'm not a big Tom Taylor fan, and then I heard about, oh no, that's Tom King. Never mind. And then another Tom. He shares a name.
Old Man David's got a point. This is kind of where I'm coming from. Tom Taylor is writing a what if story. What if Tom Taylor was Nightwing?
I mean, I'll be the first to say that Tom has had some heavy-handed writing and leaned certain ways. But if I'm going to be honest, if I look at 95% of his run that he's done with Nightwing so far in 6 issues, I feel like he's been pretty on point with Nightwing as a character. And we have to keep in mind, we're focusing on one minor thing that happened in one issue. But so far through these 6 issues, we've done, except for issue 2, where Nightwing didn't seem to know about homeless people for some reason, this has been very much Dick Grayson. And this has very much been the best representation of not only Dick, but Barbara and Tim. And it's gotten back to the archetypes and core of who these characters are. So I don't think he's writing a what if.
Saying, Josh, you are setting yourself up for a massive amount of disappointment in your future readings of Nightwing.
I thought Superman was good. I thought Superman Kal-El was a pretty good issue. I finally got around to reading that.
See, we need to just send Tom Taylor back to Australia.
I don't think he's
can write comics in Australia.
He's just a writer.
No, they are very quickly turning back into a fucking prison colony. Let him be over there.
Look, here, I'll put it this way. We're talking about his length on comic books, and we tend to discuss Deceased and how well he does with it. And even though it is an Elseworld story, his characters are characters. We've even praised how well he wrote Jonathan Kent and Damian Wayne in that book. If you go back before it, his run on Injustice, like, in my opinion,
people love that.
The best Harley Quinn we had seen until Harleen. some of the best Black Canary work, some of the best Green Lantern work, some of the best Green Arrow work, some of the best uses of Ra's al Ghul. Like, he understands characters. So if he has an editor that just will take little notes, and hey, if these little like one-offs are the badness we're getting as opposed to what he did at Marvel, I'll take it, because the other 95% for me works. And it's way better than anything we've gotten pretty much through the new 52.
I'm with you. I feel the same way about Daredevil, with Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil.
Oh,
every 7 issues, he puts something in there, and you roll your eyes, you move on, and it's good for another 6 issues.
Yeah.
You got to get it out. You know, that pimple needs to be popped.
Yeah.
Old School Comics says we have to expect Tom Taylor's quality to dip. He's writing a lot of stuff now, and I would like a Tyrant redemption arc in the Superman story, though. What were you going to say, Joe? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that there's also an assumption moving forward, like the way it's being talked about, like this is going to be the A plot or something like that. I know I'm saying about this a little more extreme, but it's like I don't know how much if Nightwing isn't going to learn a lesson from things not going how he thought it would, I don't see this taking up that much page real estate if it's just a background thing that every once in a while, get some sort of update on like, oh, things are going, better here or there. I think it's also important to keep in mind Bloodhaven's different from Gotham. Nightwing might think that there's things he can do here that would help Bloodhaven that don't work in Gotham. And despite the fact that, yes, he was raised by billionaires and all of that, I think I'm speaking for a lot of people here where I think a lot of sons at some point in their life think that they know more or better than their dads.
Yes.
You do not speak for me, sir.
It's when you're 15, not when you're 30.
No, but you get that, like, we could talk about that, but I think that's kind of where they might be coming from here. So like there's reasons for that. We'll see. I think it's either going to be that this doesn't work out how he hopes, or it's not going to be that important overall to the story, and it's going to be just like this background thing. I think everyone, including myself, would be annoyed if suddenly this was 10 pages of every issue moving forward, but I just don't see that being the case.
I'm going with door number C. It's a harbinger of things to come. I'm just saying. We've got Michael Johnson Curry here, says, hypothetically, in a superhero world, would be giving away money like this really help? What about metahumans just wrecking things or other supervillains? That's what I would prefer to fight, rather than inequity and other things like that. I wanted to fight supervillains.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be.
He is. He's fighting Heartless and Blockbuster. This is just like Joe said, this is just a side plot. This is just
you're making assumptions here.
I am making assumptions, but I've read so much, well, besides Marvel, from Tom Taylor to know that this is just front and center for this issue. We got to take a look at the next issue and maybe even the next one to really judge what this meant to the story.
We got Kenneth Dallin. Remember, I'm also a billionaire who donates to Thinking Critical. And Joe, you and Perch, please make me an offspring of City of Bruce.
I think
very nice. Do you get into that story? Thank you very much. Can we hear you talk about the future of the MCU? Hopefully, if we get to it, where we actually are running out of time. Kenneth Dowling, huge props to Josh, Tristen, Denny O'Neil. Denny tackled political issues in his comics, but he used it with to write classic comic superhero stories.
And I want to add something to that Josh said about Denny O'Neil. Yes, there was nuance, but not always with him. There wasn't always that, and generally more now, you don't see that nuance. I'm not debating that at all. But Denny O'Neil was not one for nuance sometimes. He was just as political sometimes as what we would see. But it was just a different, Overton's window has since shifted. So it was just a different time back then. Then it was about treating people of different colors and races different. Now it's about billionaires and homophobia. It's just Overton's window shifting.
That's fair.
All right. Well, let's move on from this one. Let's get in this Webtoon deal. We've got a few things that we got to handle. So DC Comics needs to expand the readership. Webtoon has, I believe, 72 million active monthly subscribers. It feels like a big deal, Tristan. I know you're a big DC fan. Are you in favor of this? Are you going to get a Webtoon account so you can see further adventures of Batman?
Yeah, what I love about this is constantly on my channel I'm talking about they need to get that younger readership. They need to hook them. This is a really good way to do it, and kind of very similar to the way Viz does it. It's cheap. Kids can't afford, comics aren't made at this point for kids. They're just simply not. This is like what you get a couple free seasons and then they're like 50 cents. So the problem I have is I think it's going to cause a stir like behind the scenes because they're going to use Webtoon talent. They're not going to take Tom Taylor over there. They're not going to take, Stephanie Phillips over there. They're going to use Webtoon talent to start it all over. And I think that's going to cause an issue, but I think this is awesome. I think it's really, really smart.
Uel, as someone who depends on DC Comics and Marvel Comics making physical comic books to put them into your store and make money and help take care of your family, are you in favor of this?
I'm not in favor of anything anymore. It's really, I mean, owning a store, like I was doing ordering for the store I worked at before I owned a store, and now I own a store, and more is placed on, the success of the store on my back, and seeing people leave company, it happens all the time. Michael Golden didn't do every comic in the 70s. He went and made a real money at a different job, everybody's looking to get to Hollywood. You just, find out about it like you do then as you do now. So I look at it as like, all right, this is another thing that they're going to try and do. And I'll have to adjust, if things aren't coming out weekly, monthly,
it shouldn't affect DC's production because Webtoons are literally just using the characters.
I understand. Yeah. It's just cartoons used to be a thing that got me to read a comic book, but I don't know, man. Whatever. Let them try. Didn't they have an online thing that they had years ago? Like that Zuba thing or something like that? I don't know. People were talking about that. They try. I just I'm sorry. I'm at a loss. Just make some good comics for once. That's all I really care about. Put some real talent in, and you don't have to worry. I mean, really? But cool. I'm glad. I hope we get new people caring.
What do you think about this deal, Joe? Is there any way that they can use this to bring in new people to comic shops or become comic book readers? Because if they're just going to Webtoon for their DC stuff and they don't ever come over, was it successful?
I would imagine that they're going to try to do some cross promotion. We'll see how these comics are laid out, but it's be that hard to put a link to, for more adventures for Batman, click here at the end of each, Webtoon. And if they're still making money and generating things from that, I mean, it's helpful all around. And it's definitely gonna hit a different audience. And we have seen that while people don't come in necessarily to shops to start, subscribing to floppies, that whenever there is something big going on, that people do go back and buy the classics and all that. There's a Batman movie, you get a spike in, your year ones, Dark Knight Returns, Long Halloweens, and all that stuff. So this could create a spike for some of those evergreen books. And again, it helps the company all around. So I could see something like that happening.
I think it also is a lot to do with Daniel Cherry because he brought in the Fortnite stuff and that exploded. My nephew's talking about it all the time, about the books, about the codes you get, about all of that. I really think that this is a smart move for the younger generation. And if you can get the kid market, you can make billions. Look at My Hero Academia,
I think that's the key, though, is how they market this and how they try to take this. The publishers need to try to, DC, I guess, in this case, needs to try to take this opportunity of seeing new faces and getting new readers to then shift into their current stuff. So they have to market themselves in that way. And when Wes and I did the video on this, that was one of the points I brought up. There are probably a lot of kids that don't have comic book shops nearby. You don't have newsstands where they can go get comic books, and they might be young enough that they don't realize you can go to something like Comixology and just download a book. So if you do something where, like, hey, you subscribe and you read these, here's a free code to this issue number 1. That's a good way to try to get people hooked. And I also talked about, too, how in a lot of ways, I think this is kind of trying to train people to approach characters differently, because we grew up with the source material. So us and the people that are older than us have this strong mindset of, no, this is not my character when we see them and presented in different ways. And I think that's a valid stance to take. I've taken that stance many times. But with this younger audience, you're setting them up to so many different versions of this character that it's almost training them to not have that stance. So they're not going to go and be like, no, I'm not going to read this because it's not my Superman or not my Batman or not my Wonder Woman. They're going to look at it as, hey, look, here's another take on Wonder Woman. And they're going to potentially check it out.
But the problem is you don't get those people to actually stick around. Those people don't stick around. Because
the hope is that you need them to stick around. That's
right.
If it doesn't happen, then it wasn't successful.
I know. And so they do need to, like you have like the YA line that they've done, and that's been an abject failure because it deviates so far from who these characters are just to tell a YA story. And the webtoons needs to be like, the 90s Superman or Spider-Man cartoon, the 90s Batman cartoon, the 60s Spider-Man cartoon, the 60s Super Friends. While tone-wise, they were different than the comics to some degree, the characters still looked the same. They still were the same characters. They didn't, they might have a friendship with somebody that they don't really have in the comics, but that's not really a big deal. For the most part, the majority of the character was the same. They were the same. They were similar ages. They need to not deviate too much. The webtoons books, they can be like a Spider-Man on the fucking electric company. Type of it, but they can't be, you bring me an ocean or Daughter of Starfire. They or the Gotham High. They can't be that, or else you're never going to train these readers to actually adopt into your characters.
I think if they deviate too much, there'll never be any crossover because they won't understand the core of the character. And that's the problem I have with shows like Titans and stuff, having Bruce be a psychopathic murderer. Nobody's going to want to go read Year One or something like that after they think Bruce is this terrible person. So if they do that with webtoons, it's going to be a failure. I think deviation can be small, but it still has to stick to the core fundamentals that character has always been.
Agreed. Most of your characters that are big characters in comics were developed with certain archetypes. And I think you need to keep those archetypes, not only for the sake of the character and respecting the character, but also because those archetypes are what separate these heroes from each other.
Exactly.
But yes, you keep that fundamental base, and then, you can present it in different formats. But I agree with Doc doing stuff like, I Am Starfire and what was it, Gotham High? Like at that point, you're not even telling a superhero story. You're just telling the story you want to tell and throwing in recognizable names on top of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so we got some good news for DC Comics. It appears Brian Michael Bendis is fully moving on. His Jinxworld line is moving from DC over to Dark Horse. Obviously, he's still working on the what has he got? Justice League right now. He's finishing up Checkmate. I don't know. Is he gone? That's the big question, Joe. Are we seeing the end of Bendis once his Justice League story arc kind of wraps up? Do you think he'll be moving on permanently?
I believe a movie once said, "No one's ever really gone." So but no, I don't know if he's ever going to really be like. They're not doing these exclusive contracts anymore. It seems so. Like if he's on something or they want to do something, special, maybe if you want to do like a Black Label book or so, I could see that kind of stuff happening if he wants to and they want to. But it seems like it's probably gone after everything he's doing at DC wraps up for the foreseeable future. But maybe this leaves the door open for him to take over Amazing Spider-Man. And then,
that would be dope.
And then he could do that for a while. And then Dan Slott will realize that Bendis has written more Spider-Man issues than him once again. And then they'll get it back to Dan.
Bravo.
And then Dan will do that till he gets the most Spider-Man issues again.
But it'll be after Bendis replaces Spider-Man with Miles again.
Yeah, perhaps.
Who
You never
knows,
know.
but-
Where you're getting Ben Reilly's replacing Spider-Man pretty soon.
Well, maybe we'll
Yep.
find out he was Peter Parker the whole time, and that the
Peter Parker was a
retcons
clone.
from
Dun, dun,
the
dun.
Clone Saga were actually retconned again. Like, who knows?
It'll be a lot of fun
It'll be
things.
the third time we've retconned the Clone Saga, I think.
You know what's crazy, Josh? Heading into like the pandemic shutdown, Bendis was writing or was like overseeing the like kind of editorially like 40% of all DC new comics. And it seems like it's been very quickly that he's kind of been removed from everything.
But
I mean, yeah, because he had the Superman books, he had that whole Wonder Comics line.
He had
went
the
into-
Superman comics line where you had the Jimmy
Yep.
Olsen and the Greg
It's-
Rucka stuff with Lois Lane.
I mean, look, he's expensive and he had to earn his keep somehow, but I don't think he earned his keep. I'm not shocked. I mean, I don't think he did anything positive at DC while there. Pretty much everything he did, we saw sales drop. You also saw just negative reactions towards. I think the only thing I read of his that I even enjoyed was, I think, Action Comics leading into Leviathan. That setup was good, and then it completely fell apart. But I'm kind of with Joe. I fully expect him to pop up in Marvel. Unfortunately.
So do I.
Um,
Did you think Man of Steel was good? It was good for 3 issues before you could see where he was going.
I didn't care for it. His miniseries to launch it all, I didn't care for it.
I'm just waiting for his next Jinxworld, but it's going to be his self-titled, like his autobiographical, The Human Penis. Or the
He's
Human
already done
Testicle.
autobiographical.
No,
Sorry, the
like,
Human Testicle.
But really though, I know like since the DC stuff, it's been more popular to bash on Bendis and all that. But his Ultimate Spider-Man for me with Mark Bagley in the beginning there for years was really what got me into the character at the time, and I think that a lot of people still hold that in really high regard. Like that and Runaways are really what brought me into being a regular Marvel like floppy reader at the time. I think Bendis did a lot of good things at Marvel for quite a while. He might again. He might have needed to be away from Marvel for a time to
Kind of the
sort
way
reset.
Jack did.
Yeah. It's so there is that. There were plenty of things he did in Avengers, especially I thought like earlier on taking the reins a bit it was fine. So it's not necessarily my favorite Avengers, but
See,
he definitely had a big impact, and I don't think that I don't think it should be diminished from a misfire on Superman.
But
and
I
his
don't think
Justice League isn't bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the best Justice League ever, but the way he's
Sure.
doing it isn't written poorly. And the way he's bringing in Naomi, I didn't like her before. I didn't.
Yeah.
She wasn't terrible. I'm not saying that, but I think he's doing a pretty decent job. And the backup story, of course, is better because it's Rom V, but he's
Sure.
not. He's just gonna always have that aged up Jon Kent over his head, no matter what he
Sure.
writes.
Did Marvel ever recover from Bendis turning the Avengers into the Justice League? No. The Avengers have never recovered from that. They're just
All right,
the
well-
Justice League now.
Kenneth Dowling says if Bendis does come back to Marvel, ASM, they should just call it Ultimate Spider-Man back in high school again. Well, perhaps they will do that. We've also got Comic Quirks. Jimmy, what's good, everyone? You're good, Jimmy. That's what's good. I'm glad that you can finally make it here, buddy. We've had a good time. Hopefully you enjoy the replay talking about comic books. Is there anything else anyone else wants to say about Bendis as we're kind of trying to get this wrapped up?
Have fun at Dark Horse, I guess.
Yeah, see you later.
Jinxworld.
DC was not a good time for it.
You know what? You know what they're going to do? They're going to bring back the world's greatest comics line that Dark Horse did in the 90s when they tried to do a superhero line.
And let Bendis do that.
And let Bendis do the whole thing.
All right. I'm okay with that.
I'd rather him be the new head of X and replace John.
No.
Pretty fantastic. All those writers probably like him already.
Well, yeah, probably.
MCU.
So we got a lot of MCU news that came out. We've got Anthony Mackie signed up for Captain America 4. We got the final Eternals trailer trying to explain why they never protected humanity, even though they've been on Earth for 7,000 years. We've also got Shang-Chi coming out here. Doc, as a big Marvel fan, the Marvel aficionado himself, what's the most interesting thing happening on with the MCU this week?
That I'm keeping all of my money in my wallet moving forward. No, there's honestly, there's nothing about this interests me at all. You know, you had three movies. Well. You had 3 movies setting up Bucky as Cap, and then they changed that to do Sam as Hap, and when it made no sense. Then you have look, none of this really interests me at all. So I'm out.
Comic Quirks with Jimmy says, I dare you to say your favorite comic Bendis has ever done. Squirm, Doc, what's your favorite Bendis comic?
Powers.
There you go. What about you, Josh?
I'll just say something different. I'll say I enjoyed his Daredevil run. I thought he and Malieve did some good work there.
There we go. Joe, how about you?
Probably Ultimate Spider-Man.
Nice. Uel?
Sam and Twitch.
There we go. And how about you, Tristen? What's your favorite Bendis comic?
Oh my god. Probably Spider-Man. He's Justice League's not bad, but it's nothing compared to his old stuff.
Yeah.
He's not in his prime anymore. So there you go, exactly. Jimmy. You made Doc say something nice about a Bendis comic. It happened.
I like Powers. It was fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Even after the
I you know what? I did not mind Bendis for a very long time. I enjoyed his work for probably the first 6 or 7 years he was at Marvel. It was around 2010, 2011 that he started going right around AVX right, when that was it.
We're on the MCU now. Nerdette, what do you think about the MCU? You excited about these things coming up? I think Captain America 4 will be great if they have a good director.
Exactly. I thought Falcon and the Winter Soldier was great to set that up too, but the Eternals like nothing me. Like I felt no excitement. I felt nothing. But I will say, even though the projections are bad, Shang-Chi looks really good. I know there's some like hidden character that we're supposed to care about too coming in. I want to see Shang-Chi. The Eternals, on the other hand, is supposed to be like, why are they praising it as this great thing and it's the best MCU and it looks so boring? It absolutely doesn't look like anything the MCU has ever made. Maybe that's good though.
Absolutely. Doc, you've ruined Kenneth Dowling's outlook. He says something you guys have been saying, and I've come around to is I'm not feeling any excitement from the MCU going forward.
There isn't.
You can't listen to Doc. I'm sorry, Kenneth. He's infected you. He's like Onslaught infecting the citizens of Krakoa. He's destroyed your mind.
Well, maybe there's actual, superhero movie fatigue finally. A lot of people talk about it, and
no, there's
not everybody's going out to the. I mean, I understand.
I think for a lot of it, it's once you start getting into the D list, like really far into the.
All right, Doc. We're trying to wrap this up.
Work.
Oh, okay. I won't go.
All right, Yo, what are your thoughts on these MCU stories? Which one's got you excited? Any of them?
No, God, no. I guess Captain America. That'll be cool enough. Just do a Captain America story. Don't do your shrimp boat shit and all that other stuff. That's like that. Everybody's like, oh, Monica Rambeau, just was so wonderful when she was in the Avengers leading the team. It was always about her freaking dad and his gumbo boat and stuff. I couldn't care less about a character's thoughts in the Avengers. Just punch something. That's all I care about. And that's how I feel about Captain America. Just punch something. I don't care about that other stuff. You already done it. I don't need more. And it's probably going to be more, so it'll probably stink.
All right, Joe, are you the one that's excited for Shang-Chi this weekend?
I'll watch it. I don't know if I'm excited about any of this, but I mean, I'll watch that. I guess probably the Spider-Man movie, if it ever actually comes out, that they keep refusing to have a trailer for. I'm interested in that probably more, and surprisingly enough, it's a higher profile character than Shang-Chi and the Eternals and all of that. So interested in that. I'm interested to see what they do with Captain America 4. I don't know if I'm excited for it yet, but I really I like the character and the world of Captain America. So that's something. But Shang-Chi is going to be an uphill battle along with the Eternals. Although, again, like kind of building on what Tristen was saying, like Shang-Chi looks good. It looks like it's a lot of action and stuff. So it could end up being a lot of fun. I feel like even if it is, it might not meet box office expectations and things like that, but it could end up being fun.
All right, Josh, when is Shang-Chi coming out? Is it this weekend or next week?
September 3rd.
It's September 3rd. So I think it's not this week, not this upcoming weekend, but the one following. I'm going to be the opposing voice here. I actually feel pretty good about things. I've got some friends that have actually gotten to see Shang-Chi already.
Mm-hmm.
And it's people that I trust. And, you see plenty of people that are critics that'll praise things out in person and then maybe have different opinions or praise things publicly and have different opinions in person. And all of my in-person conversations or over the phone conversations have been extremely positive for Shang-Chi, to the point that people that I trust and value their opinions have said, this is the best origin movie since Iron Man. So for me, I think Shang-Chi is going to do a lot better than we expect it to do. I don't think it's going to have the best opening weekend, but I think unlike what we've been seeing, you're going to get those repeat visits from people, mainly because it won't be on a streaming service for you to watch. And I think word of mouth is going to play a game. So I'd say expect mediocre opening weekend, but expect better lasting power in the coming weeks. Also, just with MCU in general, I would say keep in mind that they had a very clear direction of where they wanted to go and take things for the movies that we're seeing right now. And then because of the pandemic, it gave them time to hit the pause button, kind of reshuffle things around so they can get these Fox properties in. So I think a lot of what we're seeing is a little bit of adjustment of what they originally planned, so it doesn't feel as tight to get into tighter, better things. So I don't think we're on a negative slope. I think we're kind of plateaued for a hot second and we'll start to lift. As for the Eternals, from a film aspect, it looks like a freaking beautiful film. I'm really curious to see it, and I think the scope of it's going to be a lot larger than what we're expecting. And final thought, I'll just take this back to the Guardians of the Galaxy. When it came out, everyone was like, what the F is this? This looks stupid. No one's interested.
Very true.
Disagree completely. That wasn't that wasn't the consensus.
Are you kidding me? The general consensus about Guardians of the Galaxy from the general audience, nobody cared.
I understand that. No, I do agree there. But the fact is, comic art audiences are the ones that make these things work or not. They do. They end up as evangelists for this stuff. And you have 3 movies or 2 movies coming out that nobody has ever given a shit about these characters. Nobody in comics. These characters have never succeeded, ever. Find me a printed comic from the Eternals or Shang-Chi that has lasted more than 12 or 20 issues. You won't.
Well, Masters.
I probably could, but we're coming to the end of the day. We got Jimmy from Comics Works. Eternals trailer was dope. Shang-Chi looks okay.
Isn't this the guy that likes Secret Wars 2 or something like that?
He's.
I think maybe
Jimmy was all on his Infinity War cake.
I know.
We love you, Jimmy.
Absolutely. And Kenneth says, Wes, I know you aren't interested in it. I have been watching the What If show and I really like it. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. I watch cartoons because I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old and I have a newborn. I watch cartoons like 20 hours a day, every day of my life. I just can't bring myself to watch any more cartoons. If I have to watch so much Loco Nuts and Paw Patrol and Pokio and all that stuff all day long, it's not that I don't like cartoons. It's that I have cartoon fatigue. That's what it is. So, what did anyone else see the Chadwick Boseman Black Panther episode? Was it good?
Yeah, I didn't care for the first episode because it was literally just like, okay, here's the story of Captain America: The First Avenger, but with Peggy Carter, and here's some minor changes at the end. The Black Panther episode where he becomes Star-Lord was actually a lot of fun, and it completely just changed things around. And from what I'm understanding, this third episode even changes things even more before the stories all kind of start connecting together. So I'm open to it. Am I like racing to go watch it every Wednesday? No, but when I watch it, I enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much, Kenneth. I think we're going to have to. Paw Patrol movie is the best superhero film of the year. I believe it. I love Paw Patrol. I watch more Paw Patrol than you can imagine.
You're going to be watching a lot more.
Yeah, my son's like Mission Paw and whatever the thing where they're superheroes. He absolutely loves it. So, with the look on Joe's face, it's time to do some comic book recommendations and get the hell on out of here. I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to keep you so long.
No, it's fine.
What comic books are you recommended this week?
One thing I did read, I picked up a little earlier, was a graphic novel that came out just a couple weeks ago from Dark Horse, The Shadows. It's a French graphic novel by Zabos and Hippolyte, and it's really great. I love that kind of stuff. The art's very, if you know different French graphic novels and things like that, it's that kind of art. Nick Bertozzi also has a similar art style. So I definitely recommend that. It's a really sort of trippy, surrealist kind of adventure with a brother and sister trying to seek asylum after their village was destroyed. And it's really it's really great. It's very engrossing. It's a pretty quick read, but yeah, I definitely recommend that. And I've been enjoying, stuff like Justice League Last Ride. I've been having a good time with that. And I feel like that's not getting enough love out there. So definitely also everyone check that out.
I agree with you. We've also got Sadiq Flowers says, I really enjoyed Tristen being on the panel. It's nice to hear different opinions and counterpoints. I couldn't agree more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tristan.
I love
it's great to have a different perspectives. We've also got Kenneth Dowling. He's recommending Moon Knight #2. You son of a bitch. That's my recommendation. Great voice by Josh on the MCU. Take care. You guys are awesome. Everyone read 80s comics. Never fails. Absolutely. We've also got Infamy or Death. I recommend Noctera 6 this week. It was such a great series. Then Beckstar for next week. Can't wait to read.
Yes.
This guy and Breen all they talk about is Beckstar. Joe. What is it? What is the secret sauce?
I can't tell. I guess they just have great taste.
It's the art.
It's the art.
It's the cover art.
The art.
I thought this was a family show. Why are we talking about Joe's secret sauce?
Wait, there you go.
Wait, I thought that was a Robin reference.
For me or Death. And Tristan, thank you so much. What do you recommend that people read this week?
Actually, it's something I slept on. That is Stephanie Phillips' Nuclear Family. Like, I read all over DC stuff. It has nothing to do with me talking to her yesterday. I swear. I slept on it. I had my interview coming up, and I'm like, I better read this. I don't know what it is. I'm going to get it. All 5 issues were so damn good. It was such a different look on, like, the post-apocalyptic fiction that it made no sense, but it made a whole bunch of different takes on that type of future. And it's a period piece from the 60s. It's awesome. Also, Infamy was so right. Noctera is so good. Too bad it's taking a break. Yep. It's amazing.
Tristan, I would very much recommend not sleeping on your comics. You're going to damage their value.
That's a good point.
You wake up and there's like little drops of.
I fell asleep. I fell asleep one time reading a comic book, and I woke up and it was like the cover was ripped off because I was rolling around, and I'm like, nah.
We know what you were doing with the cover, Doc. Let's
wait a second. Campbell. Oh my goodness.
No. Well, you know what? It was
meaning to wrap it up.
It was an issue of Brian K. Vaughan's Mystique series. And
there you go.
They did have some hot covers.
All right, Doc, what are you recommending this week?
Way of X. And that's literally it. Nothing else came out that is even worth a dime or a moment of your time.
Well, I'll disagree with that. We'll get to those details. Uel Carter, what do you recommend this week?
All right, I'm just going to give you this one, and I haven't even read it yet. It's $5. This is a challenge to all of you out there that love your 80s comics. Just go out and buy this like I did. It's called The Heroes Union right here. Mm-hmm. This is written by a guy named Roger Stern with art by Ron Frenz and Sal Buscema on inks. You purport to like this kind of stuff, you should get it.
Absolutely. That is a wonderful recommendation. Challenge. Are you going to be anywhere soon? You got any more comic shows coming up?
To me personally, no, I'm free.
You had a couple of
I did. It was back to back. FCBD and a convention. Yeah.
And we got comic quirks from Jimmy. Doc sleeps with comics confirmed. You should be ashamed. Next thing he's going to say is that he's a furry. Yes. Basically, Doc is one step from being a furry. He probably lays down with My Little Pony comics.
I will
think about it.
If the X-Men are in it, he will.
All right, Josh, what do you recommend this week?
I'm gonna go ahead and just recommend Catwoman by Ram V. I thought that was pretty good. I most of the other stuff that I read this week, I wasn't overly impressed with.
I'm having the same problem you are. You guys already recommended the three that I would have: Catwoman, Moon Knight, and Way of X. So I guess I'll say Sinister War, even though it's easily the worst issue of the Sinister War event so far, in my opinion. It was like pretty not great.
Did that come out this week?
Yeah, Sinister War 3.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't picked up my comics yet.
Check it out. You can be as underwhelmed as I was, Doc.
Oh,
I do want to say thank you all very much. Definitely check out Joe and I talking about A Contract with God from Will Eisner later on. We got a lot of good stuff going on, and I don't know if you want Uel and I to start doing a comic book show. Or not a comic book, a wrestling show.
Wrestling! Oh,
yeah,
like
we've been talking about it.
Point.
I've got some time now. We gotta look into this.
All right, yeah, you guys let us know in chat if that's something you want.
If that's something you want. All right, bye, everybody. Salamat po.
Wash your ass.